Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are coming from. I hope you are having a wonderful Monday and after a wonderful weekend. Welcome to Classic Trials. If you are new here, of course, like I said in the intro, new intro, by the way, my name is Alita. So we are entering back into the 90s again. I hope you guys appreciate the oversized flannel. I told Mr. Bites, I texted him, I hope it's okay that I start using his clothes for the 90s attire here, because it's kind of like 90s grunge a little bit. I figured we'll see if it works. I figured it was good enough anyway. So so happy to have you guys here. Really, really happy. So, all right. Let's say hi to folks in the chat. All right, we've got Tori Rudiger coming in from Canada. Good morning. We've got Interlocution. Good morning from Arizona. Jane Blackbird, hi from Humboldt. We've got Nina Albrechtsen. Good evening from Denmark. Love this series. I'm so happy you're enjoying it. I absolutely love it because it is something that I never got to watch myself in real time. So it's a very important case to the United States, but obviously outside of the United States as well. And so yeah, I'm enjoying it too. I'm really happy that you are as well. Tori Rudiger from BC, Canada. Debbie Faison Cook, I'm in Florida. Awesome. Happy to have you here. Sandra Ramirez coming in from sunny Savannah. Katerina Ferreira from California. We've got Fun Times from Texas. And we've got, let's see here. Let's see. Those are the ones that I managed to save before and during the intro. And let's see here. Where else have we got people coming in from? Oh, Ryan Gallo. Love the flannel. Oh, thank you. It is cozy. It is. And I've also got some hot cocoa with me. So it's a hot cocoa kind of day. I hope you guys are having something good as well while you're watching. Let's see here. We've got Iris from New York. We've got Living Life with and Singing Songs with Mel. Hi from Utah. Hello, hello. We've got Mew Mew 0203 from Tokyo. Love to see folks in coming in from around the world. I always am so honored by that. Genergy from Sicklerville, New Jersey. Sunny, 76 degrees. Wow, that is definitely very, very toasty for November, right? Anna Fernandez from Miami. We've got Ellen, not Sarah Lee, from North Carolina. Secret McSquirrel, I think maybe from Scotland, right? If not, I have not been paying attention. Melissa Samick from WeHo. Loving this series. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're enjoying it. Shireen says afternoon. Afternoon to you, Shireen. B is an oversized flannel time every time. Yeah, I would like to think so. I definitely would. Ms. Amanda from Washington State. I love it. Welcome, welcome. Anna Costello from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And let's see, maybe we can sneak in a couple more here. Let's see. We've got Isabel from College Park, Maryland. We've got Jessica Lambert from the UK. Carol from Milwaukee. And let's see. Nick Witsky, sorry, it took me a second, from Adelaide, Australia, 3:35 a.m. Well, I hope that you are maybe cozying up in bed, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're on a nocturnal schedule, but either way, very, very happy to have you here. Jazzy B from Scotland. We've got Vic Lomont. I hope I pronounced that right. I always feel very self-conscious about French names because I know that the French are very particular, or that's been my experience anyway, and zero knock to them, right? Because they have standards, right? So bonne soirée near Bordeaux, France. Very, very happy to have you here. Tekin from Copenhagen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Alrighty. So I think that's what we got for today. Oh my gosh, and I there are so many more people in the chat, but I love seeing all of you here. Thank you so much. I just for funsies, I put in a poll in the live chat for whether you prefer defendant or defendant. Because if you've been watching with us, you know that the judge has a very particular way of saying what I pronounce as defendant. So to me, it's been very, very interesting to sort of watch that. Anyhow, as far as guests are concerned, today we are supposed to have some folks popping in. So we'll see when people can come in here and there. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. So, but before we do, I did notice in the chat, I wasn't able to grab it before things took off, but I did see that Brittany Chanel in the chat is her birthday eve. So happy birthday eve to you, Brittany. And if you're here tomorrow for legal tea, then I'll wish you happy birthday then again. So just wanted to say that before I forgot. And let's do just a quick recap on last week, right? So last week we started to finally hear from some of the witnesses, right? We got some witness testimony. It's been a very interesting strategy so far, right? Because this is, when it comes to putting on witnesses, they are really kind of telling the story for the jury, right? The attorneys are able to give a framework in their opening statements. That's like one of the few opportunities that they have to like really just sort of tell the story from the get-go and really give their framing for the jury to hopefully adopt their framing and not the opposite side's framing, right? So, but when it comes to the witnesses, you need them to kind of be telling the same story as you so that it reinforces the story that you want to be sort of accepted by the jury, let's say. So it's been kind of peculiar though, because it's been kind of a little bit of a rough start for the prosecution, because the witnesses that they started to put on really gave just such tiny slivers of the story of what happened on the night of the killings of the Menendez parents. So after a few witnesses, then they finally put on the sergeant who was the one who actually investigated everything and really kind of got the whole story. It was very strange to me that they didn't start with him for that reason. And I'm wondering now if you are familiar with the backstory of this case, you probably are familiar with the fact that there actually are two trials, right? We are looking at the first one right now. This may have been something that the prosecution later re-examined and said, you know what, maybe we need to sort of shift some of these things again and do things a little bit differently. And give me 1 second. I've got our first guest. Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever freaking time it is, wherever you are. Good day. Good day.
That is exactly why I do that. Every stream, I feel like I have to start with that because I'm like, I have, what time is it anyway?
I forget. Life is just too fast. So much time.
How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing quite well. How are you? I heard a little bit of a recap.
Yeah.
So where are we in the Menendez trial?
So we are 3.5 witnesses deep. We heard from the first 3. We started with the police dispatcher and then a neighbor and then an officer, like one police officer. And then we finally got to Sergeant Kirk West, who was the officer who actually investigated everything and basically has the whole story. And I was just saying that it really is strange to me that they didn't start with Sergeant Kirk West.
Yeah, you want to try and you need a scene setter. You need a scene setter, someone that kind of just sets the scene for everybody, and then the parts come and fill it in. Otherwise, there's no context to what's being said.
Yeah, you're just kind of throwing data points at people that don't necessarily have like any boxes in which to place those pieces of information. And so, it's if you present evidence to a jury, that's all well and good, but if they don't remember it and they don't have any way of contextualizing that information, it's just data, and that's just going to fly over their head or just sift right through the filter. So interesting so far. We had the neighbor Avril Crom, who sounded like she had a South African accent, talking about popping sounds when she was talking about the gunfire that she heard that night, which seems different from what you would expect coming from a shotgun, because usually we describe that as a boom. And so there were some interesting things that were coming out with that. We heard the 911 call from the police dispatcher that was put in by, I believe, Lyle Menendez after they shot their parents. Also interesting to hear that, like, right off the bat. It's very emotional. And I don't actually know that really helps the prosecution's case either, because the emotion sounds very sincere, sounds very real. And so, I mean, it definitely seems like this was still a very traumatic experience for the person who has called this in, regardless if he's the one that did the killing. I don't know if you were able to catch the 911 call part.
I didn't catch that. The 911 call was during the tail end of the CLE that I was being forced to attend. But I did catch the neighbor that heard the shotgun or the popping sound. So I've been trying to keep up with this one. I think the thing that most people are confused about is this 2-trial thing. And it's hard to have to explain that every time. Yes, there were 2 trials. The first trial, they were tried together. The second trial, they were tried separately. Right? Yes.
No.
They were trying together both trials? Oh.
So they have 2 different juries in this one.
That's right. 2 different juries in this one.
One of them, like, their name tags, their juror badges have like a yellow sticker, and the other one, they have a blue sticker. So that's how they've differentiated them. And so I think I mean, so far, it definitely is. The only thing that's been different with them is the opening statements, which have not really been all that different.
No.
Between all of them. So it's I don't know. It's interesting nonetheless. So I wonder at what point there will be witnesses that don't get heard for one jury or for another.
Yeah.
But, well, we'll burn that bridge when we get there.
Bridge we get there.
Okay. So anyway, let's get into the trial. We'll continue with the testimony by Sergeant Kirk West, who is the investigator who actually got the full story of what happened, right? Okay, so I've basically queued it up to exactly the point where we left off last time. Okay. Or should we do it like this? Yeah, that's probably better. Okay. And let me know if the sound needs to be boosted.
Please. Have you done that?
I will. From that foyer, could you see into the family room?
You can see a portion of the family room. You can't see the entire room, though.
Also, wait a second. Hang on. Well, for one thing, we've got, hey, Detective Seeds, happy to have you here.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good.
Is my volume okay? I don't want to blast you guys out.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I was actually going to see if the sound needed to be boosted on the video, but I think so far it's good. Also, before we do anything else, Sandra, thanks so much for gifting 5 Legalbytes memberships. Very kind of you, very generous of you. And to all of those who just received a membership, welcome to Bite Club. And also, I meant to go over this earlier. Fun times. Thanks so much for the generous super chat, because it's parade day for the Houston Astros. Go Astros. I say boo, but thanks for the super chat nonetheless. I know you're just trolling me because I'm a Dodgers fan, but thank you.
They made sure Bryce Harper didn't get a ring, and after he left the Nationals, good.
I mean, okay. All right, fair. But yeah, fun times. Thanks so much. And I mean, I guess congratulations. I mean, you know. Okay, anyway, Detective Seeds. So we're halfway through, not quite halfway through, partway through the testimony of Sergeant Kirk West. So
Okay.
I'm happy to have you here. Well, nonetheless, happy to have you here regardless, but also because we've got some police testimony, and I think we might have another investigator afterwards. I can't remember, but we'll see. I mean, even still, we've got like at least another hour of Sergeant Kirk West. So
Initial observations, though, he has an epic cop mustache, like epic 90s cop mustache.
Oh,
he
yeah.
absolutely does.
The grooming,
Yeah.
my word.
Oh, man. That is nice.
Yes.
He smokes cigarettes and drinks coffee in the morning for sure.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's like a must. I think it's epic.
I was actually almost envisioning a pipe rather than a cigarette.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. I could go either way on that.
Yeah. I think so too. All right. Let's continue with this testimony. Sorry for the interruption. And I'm so sorry. I just saw it in the chat. Detective Seeds, to the folks that are new to you, I've gotten so bad at this. Why don't you introduce yourself to folks in the chat that are new to you, new to your channel?
Yeah, so my channel, I was covering some law enforcement stuff. Now it's all gaming. I was getting hammered by YouTube on anything law enforcement. You put police in it, it's automatically gonna get hit. So, but I'm a former police officer. I spent most of my career, about 6 years, working undercover narcotics. I've worked state cases as well as federal cases. So I kind of got involved whenever the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing was going on to offer a different perspective other than inside the courtroom. So I've been making some appearances on different podcasts, different panels to cover the law enforcement side whenever someone reaches out. So appreciate you reaching out and happy to hang out with you guys for a little bit.
Detective Seeds, out of curiosity, what jurisdiction?
I was in Indianapolis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Very cool. I hadn't had the opportunity to meet you yet, so
Yeah.
glad
I think I'm playing cards with you at some point.
Hey,
Coming up soon.
Gotta learn who you're playing cards with before you play against them.
I know.
Well, awesome. And I can't believe you guys hadn't met, because I met both of you during the Depp trial, so I just assumed you guys knew each other.
Different circles, different times,
even,
different opportunities.
Yeah.
I suppose so. Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you guys met each other, and thank you to the chat for reminding me about introducing everybody. I'm being a terrible host here.
This is Monday. Everything goes on Mondays.
It's all good.
Fair point. Okay. All right. Now we can continue with the testimony. I promise, guys. I promise.
Back to the mustache.
There we go. And the cork board. This is, oh gosh.
My gosh.
It always transports me with the technology, right?
Sergeant West, when you went into that family room that night, were the doors open?
On the family room, yes, they were.
Are there two doors that lead into that room?
I believe they're double doors on that room.
So they were open,
Yes.
and from that vantage point, could you see the television set on?
No, I actually couldn't see the screen of it. I could see light coming from it.
And you could hear it.
Yes.
Now, you indicated that you went to the rear of the house, is that correct?
Yes, after we searched the main house.
And there was a guest house behind the main house?
Yes.
And I have another photograph. May I have that marked as Exhibit 9?
Yes.
Do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 9, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It shows a walkway that leads to a small guest house at the back On the right is the swimming pool. On the left are the tennis courts.
And what is it that you noticed about the guest house on that night, on the 20th of August?
In the guest house, the doors there were also open and the lights were on.
Did you actually go into the guest house?
Yes,
And did you examine the interior?
yes.
What, if anything, did you find of note?
We didn't find anything in the guest house.
I know. Sorry about the tie, guys. It's for whatever reason, the camera just picks it up and just makes it go wild.
Cross-examination?
Sergeant West, you went into the house primarily to conduct a search for other victims or possible suspects, correct?
That's correct.
But in the course of conducting this search, you were able to really view the entire interior of the residence. Is that
Yes.
also correct? And you were able to make certain observations about what the residence in 722 North Elm looked like. Is that
Yes.
correct? Right. Taking you back to the search of the upstairs area, you mentioned that there was in a closet that had mirrored doors that you saw 2 rifles.
Yes.
Do you now recall what room it was, or what room of the upstairs it was that you saw the closet with the rifles?
No, I don't recall which room.
Were you, you indicated that the first room that you went into upstairs was what you believed to be the master bedroom, is that correct?
That's correct.
I have 2 photographs that I've previously shown to council that I'm going to mark as Exhibit 10A and 10B. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, we will be substituting large photographs of these at some time in the future. Sergeant West, let me show you a photograph that's been marked as Exhibit 10A. Do you recognize what's shown in that photograph?
That appears to be the room I described as a master bedroom.
All right, and I'm also showing you 10B. Does that also appear to be the room that you've described as the master bedroom?
Yes, it does.
And do those photographs accurately depict what the master bedroom looked like when you first went into it on the evening of August 20th?
Yeah, I believe they would.
Does looking at Exhibits 10A and 10B refresh your recollection about the location of the closets with the mirrored doors?
No, it doesn't.
Were the closets with the mirrored doors open or closed?
Closed.
And you had to open up the door in order to find the rifles?
Correct.
And these were 2 .22 caliber rifles?
Yes.
Were they standing or lying? Could you tell us where in the closet they were?
As I recall, they were standing and just more or less leaning against the wall.
All right, so that they were standing, leaning against the wall. Did you examine the rifles at the time you were making this search?
No, I did not.
Did you examine them at any subsequent time?
No, I did not.
Are you able to tell us whether or not those rifles were loaded?
No.
Yikes.
Where in the closet were they physically located? They were so that you could see them easily when you opened the closet, right?
Yes.
You didn't have to search through any clothes to find them.
No.
Yikes.
Now, directing your attention briefly let me withdraw that. Did you write a report about your activities on the evening of August 20th, right after these events?
Yes.
Okay. And in that report, you mentioned finding the rifles in the closet, correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall whether or not in the report you also stated what bedroom it was that you located the rifles in?
I don't, I may have at that time, but I'm not sure though.
Do you think that looking at your report might help you remember?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm showing you 2 pages of a handwritten report. Do you recognize the handwriting?
Yes, that's mine.
Okay. And could you read just the first paragraph of that to yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Does that first paragraph of the report help you remember where the closet of the mirror doors was located?
Yes.
And where was it?
That indicates in there that it was a north side bedroom.
Does that north side bedroom correspond to the location of the master bedroom?
No, the master bedroom really is more at the east end or east side of the house.
This is the kind of house that definitely needs,
Now, directing your
layout.
attention to
because of how many rooms
another
it has.
bedroom on the second floor. Do you have a present recollection of a bedroom that was relatively messy?
Hugs and
Not a
hugs. Thanks for the
specific
super sticker.
recollection of it, no.
I have a series of 5 photographs which I've marked 11A through E, and which I've previously shown counsel. Can I approach you?
What a weird turn of phrase. Do you have a present recollection? Like, do you now recall?
I'm going to show you a photograph of a bedroom that's been marked 11A. Would you look at that?
I wonder if
and
it's
tell
just
us
trying to
if you
tie it
recognize it.
Directly to the language
It,
of
it looks familiar, yes.
Okay, and is that a photograph of a bedroom at 722 North Elm?
It appears to be.
And is that an upstairs bedroom?
Yes.
And where, if you recall, where in the house was that bedroom located? North, south, east, west?
I couldn't recall specifically where in the upstairs that's located.
All right, I'm going to show you some more photographs that are going to be marked 11B through E. Would you look at those and tell us, they all appear to be photographs of that one particular bedroom on the second floor at 722 North Elm Street.
Yes, they do.
All right, and is that a bedroom that you now recall seeing when you were there on the night of August 20th?
I believe so, yes.
And do those photographs all show the bedroom the way you remember seeing it when you first arrived at the house?
I'd say so, yes.
Okay. And that is a bedroom that appears to be, at least from the photographs, pretty messy.
Yes.
The drawers are open and things are dumped on the floor. Is that correct?
Yes, there are drawers open and items on the floor.
I'm going to show you a photograph of a bathroom that's been shown to counsel. I'm marking exhibit 12. Would you look at this photograph and see if you recognize having seen that particular room at 722 North Elm?
No, I don't recall seeing this room.
Okay. And I have
it's fair. There are a lot of
13,
rooms.
which is also a picture of a room. Would you look at exhibit 13 and tell us whether you recall seeing this particular room, 722 North Elm?
No, I don't specifically recall this room either.
Does there seem to be something on the floor of the room that's shown in exhibit 13?
How big is this house?
There are,
It's a mansion.
in the photograph here, there are 3
It's literally a Beverly
black
Hills
marks
mansion.
on the carpet.
Do those black marks appear to be dog droppings?
It's hard to tell from the photograph.
Now, directing your attention to the guest house area, you indicated that you went out there and you found nothing remarkable.
Correct.
Could you tell us about the condition of the guest house? That is, what did it look like?
I do remember the upstairs on the guest house was messy also.
Okay. It was, it appeared to be in extremely messy condition, possibly ransacked, I believe is a term that might describe the condition. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't think I would have characterized it as ransacked.
Okay. Did you write a report about the condition of the guest house as you remembered it from being there on August 20th?
I may have. I don't know if I included a description at that
All
time.
right, let me approach and show you another page of the handwritten report. Do you also recognize this as being your handwriting?
Yes,
And that's the report that you wrote right after these events, correct?
correct.
Would you read the highlighted portion of that to yourself, and then I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you recall now whether or not you described the condition of the guest house as possibly ransacking? You couldn't tell whether it was poor housekeeping or ransacking.
That's correct.
May I just have a moment, Ronna?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is it is speaking to, it seems like it's speaking to the possibility that he didn't quite investigate,
I have nothing
or they
further.
didn't quite investigate like they should have, right? Because she's asking about all these different rooms and he's like, I don't really remember. I don't really
Sergeant West,
remember.
is the reason that you didn't examine those rifles because
those
that
rifles.
wasn't your job that night?
Well, essentially, I realized we were dealing with a crime scene. My training has told me that you disturb as little in a crime scene as you possibly can because that's going to be handled by detectives.
So would it have been the detective's responsibility to check out that evidence and do whatever they were going to do with it?
Yes,
Your responsibility was to just make the initial observations and make sure no one touched anything, correct?
correct.
Now, do you remember who the detective was in charge of the investigation that night?
No, I don't.
Was Detective Zoeller present at the crime scene at some point?
I believe he was.
And was he somehow in charge of the crime scene, if you recall?
I don't recall.
Do you recall having a conversation with him that night after you made your observations of this rifle in the closet?
Mm.
Yes,
And we're going to
And
hear from
do
that
you
witness
remember
next.
telling him
That's
that
pretty
you
bad for
saw
him
it
not to know who's
inside
in
the
charge there.
master dressing room
Yeah.
closet?
Or actually not
two
next,
.22
but
caliber
one of the
rifles?
next ones.
I probably did, yes.
And is that, having refreshed your recollection with that statement, does that help you remember where those rifles were?
Thinking back on it, the way the house is laid out, it's such a large house. I'm really not sure if it was a separate bedroom or if it was an offshoot of the master bedroom. The thing I primarily remember was the mirrored doors.
And when you made this statement, that would have been very shortly after you made your observations, correct?
Yes,
Would it be fair to say that your memory then was much better than it is today 4 years ago as to what you observed and where?
yes.
Thank you,
That's
Carol,
all I
for
have.
looking that up. It's big.
Thank you, Your Honor.
9,000.
Sergeant West, when you
Yeah.
saw the guns in this upstairs bedroom closet, did you at any time pick up the guns?
No,
You just made the observation?
correct.
And I think you've indicated that it was the detective's job to go through a more thorough search.
That's correct.
Did you indicate that you brought it to someone's attention that you made that observation?
Yes, I believe I did.
When you thought that somebody other than yourself, for example, a detective, would do a more thorough investigation, who did you have in mind?
There would have been a number of detectives there. I don't know exactly who would have, been actually responsible for it at that time, as to what rank.
Yeah, that does
With
kind of
respect
feel
to
like
the
the right hand doesn't know what the
photograph
left hand
shown
is
to you
doing
by,
here.
Defense
That's
counsel,
not a common procedure.
exhibits 11A through E.
Okay.
You have those in front of you, Phil?
Yes,
You indicated that it appeared to be a pretty messy room.
the original ones, the ones that are depicted, the room that has the oriental carpet on the floor. Yes,
Did you believe that perhaps a burglary had taken place at that location?
no,
And when you went into the guest house, and you indicated that there was perhaps ransacking or maybe poor housekeeping, did you think that maybe there was a burglary in that structure?
no.
I'm nothing further on.
Anything else?
Were there any clothes in the closet where the two rifles were found?
I can't specifically recall if there were or not.
Do you remember whether there was anything in the closet besides the rifles?
That's the one thing I focused on when the door came open was the rifles.
So you don't know if there was women's clothes or men's clothes or any clothes for that matter?
No, I can't recall.
Thank you very much.
Whoops. Anything else?
Nothing further.
All right. Thank you. Make it down.
Thank you.
So now we've got two witnesses that are, I believe, not police, and then we'll have Detective Zoeller.
For him not to know who was the detective there is really, really bad. Especially for just chain of custody. I mean, who did you relinquish that room over to where the rifles were found?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal.
It does feel strange.
Yeah.
And so folks know, I've got the ads playing right now. That's why I pull away from the screen. So they're playing in my ears right now because sometimes it doesn't let me mute them, but I made sure to mute them for everybody else. But Rob, were you going to say something about the?
Yeah, the cross-examination. It would stress me out to no end to know that another attorney would be conducting a cross-examination right after I had finished my cross-examination. You have both defense counsel asking cross questions right there. And one of the things about cross is you're trying to really constrain the information that this witness is allowed to say. And then to do a good job of getting limited little information out of that witness and then turn it over to another attorney who you're nervous can screw it up, that would just make me exceedingly uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wonder if they had any kind of. I mean, I don't know. I've never dealt with a case where you have two trials at the same time. So I don't know how like what kind of coordination would they have had ahead of time? I mean, how much could they have had, and how like otherwise what kind of coordination like would that? I mean, that seems like that would be. I mean, that's not conversations between an attorney and a client or like within, right? So that wouldn't necessarily be work product. That would be privileged.
And then counsel usually keeps stuff kind of close to the vest. And to try and trust another attorney with your own strategy.
Yeah.
That's a big ask. That's a big ask.
Yeah. I mean, unless they had, worked on previous matters together or something and have like a working history, like I can see that perhaps working fairly well, like, they're not going to screw you over, but at the end of the day, they have their client and you have your client. So their strategy could be to screw over your client, even though their client doesn't necessarily want to screw over your client, right? Because they're brothers, they love each other. They've been through this experience together. But yeah, it is a very, very weird, nerve-wracking kind of place. But again, the defense asked for these two trials together in one. So I don't know. It's crazy. Okay. Let's get back to the testimony. Now we have Bob Anderson that's coming to the stand.
State your name for the record.
Bob Anderson.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Anderson.
Now that is a 90s shirt right there.
What is happening? Oh my God.
90s fashion. I love it. He might.
Anderson, what is your occupation, sir?
I'm a boat operator.
He's a
Boat
surfer
operator.
for sure.
He is definitely
Yep.
a
I've been doing that for about 15 years.
Yeah.
He operates the Love Boat.
On August 19th, 1989, were you employed in that fashion?
Yes, I was.
And where were you employed?
Marine Del Rey,
What company?
motion picture Marine.
And what is the nature of that business?
It's a marine production company.
Which means what?
We do full marine productions. They contract out boats and crews and lifeguards and
Okay, on the 19th of August, did you have a job that day?
Yeah, we had a shark fishing charter.
That's shark fishing?
That's correct.
Do you recall who was on that particular charter?
Yes, I do.
Who was that?
The Menendez family,
And who in particular?
Jose and Kitty and Lyle and Erik.
Do you see the persons that you've referred to as Lyle and Erik in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
And would you just identify them? For the court?
In the plaid shirt and the blue shirt.
Report to the two defendants at council table.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yes, such a full house shirt.
What time
Definitely.
did this charter take place?
We actually left the dock around 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, somewhere right around there.
And where was your boat docked?
In Marina Del Rey.
This was a family outing?
Yes, it was.
I would like one of these shirts for the next stream.
Were you the only person on that boat that was actually operating the boat? Or were there other?
Well, I was the boat operator. I had a deckhand and just a friend along.
So there were three people besides the Menendez family?
That's correct.
Would you describe for the jurors what took place as the Menendez family arrived at the Marina Del Rey? Well, when you got to your
From the beginning,
yeah, when you
or
got to your boat, just describe what took place.
well, we were. I gave them, an introduction to my deckhand and myself, and of course met the family and gave them a quick once over on the boat and what we'd be doing, and how the evening would go time wise, and how the shark fishing charter would go.
I wonder if those are even legal in California anymore.
Like, oh, can the attorneys stop brushing the
I'm
microphone
sorry, I keep
on?
leaning on this microphone. It's sitting right here.
Robbie heard you.
Maybe there's a camera up there somewhere.
And yeah, he is
Had
chewing
this
gum. There are some
charter,
judges that would not
been
allow that
arranged
for
for
sure.
some time, or was this something that occurred recently?
To tell you the truth, I'm not sure how long in advance the charter wasn't arranged through me, so I'm not sure how long in advance. I'd only known about the charter maybe 2 days in advance.
You indicated that it was shark fishing. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Do you provide the family members on this charter with fishing poles?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, did you do that?
Yes, we had poles.
Did each member of the family have a fishing pole that day?
Yeah, we usually put out enough for the family and a couple extra that we have out on deck, set up, ready to go. So everyone was set up. Not everyone actually used a fishing pole, but everyone was set up too.
Okay, when you say set up, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Well,
I feel like
set
that's
up
not
with the
legal in
shark
California
rig,
anymore.
or initially before we go sharking, we set the rods up to go catch the bait fish. To go mackerel fishing first. So we set up some to fish for the mackerel, and then change those over later for shark rigs.
And did you do that on this occasion?
Yes, we did. Did
you catch any mackerel?
A couple of mackerel, not an incredible amount, but a couple.
Did any of the family members catch fish?
I don't think they were too involved in the mackerel catching. I'm not sure. I don't believe that anyone really did that. I think just my deckhand.
So your deckhand caught some fish?
Yeah.
Now, were those fish then used as bait for the shark?
Yes, they were.
Did anyone catch any shark?
We caught a couple sharks that night. I believe 2 or 3. I'm not sure which.
Might be up closer to the witness.
Yeah.
Tell me
Just that.
Okay, so apparently they do allow some shark fishing in California, just not great white.
You can still go shark fishing.
Oh, closer. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm surprised because California has so many regulations. I
Mr. Anderson, how big
legitimately
was the
thought that
boat
they
that was
didn't
used on this
allow it
particular
anymore.
day?
It was a 31-footer.
When you set up the rigs, the fishing poles for the family. How did you do that? Did you set them all on one side of the boat or in one area of the boat?
Well, initially when the family's coming on, we have them just put aside so that there's room on the dock, so that people can step from the dock onto the boat. As we're going out, usually the rods go in the rod holders with the extras set up to the side.
Okay, so where are the rod holders on that particular boat?
They're midship on both sides of the boat and at the stern on both sides.
How many rod holders are there on either side?
2 on either side, and then there's one in the middle of the stern, but I don't think we were set up there. We're usually not.
When the Menendez family arrived, did they initially mill around the back of the boat, or did they go directly to their rods?
Basically, I think Jose and Kitty. Well, I think everyone initially probably went down below in the boat right away, kind of into the boat and then maybe down below just to look inside. And like I said, I gave everyone a brief tour of the boat. Usually I show them where the life jackets are that are, down below deck underneath the ceiling and, or on top of the ceiling, pardon me. And so from then on, Kitty stayed pretty much down below. Jose a little out back, and Erik and Lyle moved to the front of the boat, I believe, right as we were leaving the dock.
So they were facing in the direction that your boat was moving?
That's correct.
The whole family was together as you were giving them a tour of the cabin area?
Well, there's not really, it's a very small boat, so you kind of have to be together right there.
Is there a bathroom on the boat?
Yes, there is.
Is there a bed on the boat?
Yes, there are. There's fold down beds, and there's a little V berth up front with beds in it.
Did you actually take off from Marina del Rey sometime after 4:30 then?
Yeah, probably actually left dock maybe 5 o'clock, usually just not very long afterwards. We were set up because we had been actually ready to leave at 3 o'clock when the charter was supposed to have been.
How long a charter was this?
Oh, we got back approximately 11:30 to midnight that evening.
You were with the family some 7 hours then?
Yes, correct.
Would you describe for the jurors what kind of activities were going on as you were on this charter?
Well, what do you mean activities-wise? By the defendants or myself?
First of all, that I believe Kitty Menendez was down below initially.
Yes, Kitty stayed down below pretty much the whole charter. She very seldom came out to the back of the boat.
Was there a point that she came up and either fished or watched seals?
Well, she'd come out and look at the. She came out and looked when we actually caught some sharks, and then coming back, we stopped at another shark spot where that's prolific with seals. And as the seals were swimming by, I believe Jose called to Kitty to come out and look at them, and sure she came out, and everyone was pretty excited. They were, swimming up to the boat and right around. So,
when you say everyone was excited, did the brothers come to where Kitty and Jose were to look at the seals as well?
Gosh, I believe so, but I couldn't tell you for sure, but I believe so.
Did anyone else point out seals to Kitty that day?
Just right there at that spot. That's the only place where they really were that I recall seeing them at the night. And I'm not sure exactly who called out. I know Jose mentioned it, and I'm not sure if anybody else called out to her to look at them or not. I can't recall.
Did she seem to be interested in those seals?
Oh yeah.
Where are we going with this testimony?
Like I said, it was almost the only time we saw her all night, almost.
Did she comment on what she had seen?
Oh, I can't recall. I'm sorry.
Now, you said that there were a couple of catches of sharks. Who caught the sharks?
Boy, Well, who actually reeled them up?
Yes.
Gosh. I can't really recall. I think Erik reeled up a shark, and I think Jose, but
That dude was probably 10
I
Coronas
can't remember
deep by that point.
positively
He
if that's
doesn't know.
right or not.
Was there excitement within the family at the catching of these sharks?
Oh my God! Why are we talking?
Yeah, so
about this?
sure, everybody wanted to look and see and
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure this
watch them
out.
come up. So yes, there was.
Is it to like show the sons as
family members
predators or
gather
something?
around where the shark was being pulled in or reeled in?
I believe so. Like I said, it's a 31-foot boat. So if you're up on the deck, you're around where the shark's going to get pulled in.
Do you believe in the ethical treatment
But
of sharks?
everybody came to look at the sharks and came onto that small deck area. So sure.
What kind of sharks were they?
What kind of sharks were
Oh
caught?
my God.
I think they were just brown sharks, if I recall.
Tell me that.
At some point, did the family
Were there any baby sharks?
all go into the cabin? I mean, it was about a 7-hour trip, right?
You already said this.
Boy, very seldom was the family all in the cabin together that I can recall. Occasionally, people would go in and out, but no, very seldom. I think can I remember the family being all together in the cabin.
Were there refreshments on this charter?
The charters bring the refreshments, and I'm sure there was, but I can't recall what it was.
Because I was
Do
too
you
many
recall
beers
them
deep.
bringing a little cooler with them or anything like that?
That's usual, and I can't remember for sure if they did, but that's normal. They're usually told beforehand to do that. Bring their own food and refreshments. And
Do you recall ever seeing them? Well, did anyone get sick on this charter?
yeah, well, Kitty was sick, I think, the whole time below deck, and then Jose got sick. Coming back, I remember I don't know if he was sick. I can't remember if he was sick the whole time, but I remember he was sick coming back from like Redondo. I remember looking back and noticing that he was sick.
Trying to say that they
getting
tried to
sick.
poison them or something?
Being sick.
I don't understand.
Did you actually see him being sick?
Yes.
Okay, was it pretty choppy?
Yeah, it was very choppy. It was a choppy, windy day.
So was it choppy about the whole time?
Yes.
When is it that Kitty
Laser
became ill?
beams.
I think very early on.
Did you see Kitty get sick too?
I don't remember visibly seeing Kitty get sick. She was down below, and there's a bathroom down there. So I can't remember if I actually saw her get sick or not.
She spent her time down below deck. She probably did get sick.
Is that pretty common on a choppy day like the day?
Very common. Very common.
Did any of the
At some
guests
point,
get
you indicated
turned
that you
up?
went to
Are you
Redondo
familiar
Beach
with that term?
Yes.
fishing there. How far did you go that day?
That's about where we went off the Dominator off the point there.
Natalie.
And did you stop and fish at that location for a
Yes.
while?
Yes.
At some point, then you returned to Marina Del Rey, and approximately what time was that?
That we turned around to come back.
Yes.
Well, we stopped and fished at the seal spot on the way back for approximately an hour, and it's about half an hour from there. So somewhere right around 9:30, I'd say, is when we left the point
The point being,
where the Dominator is at Redondo.
and about what time did you arrive back at the Marina Del Rey?
We arrived back around 11:30 p.m.
Did the family appear pretty tired from the day's activities?
Yeah, tired and probably happy to be back on land.
Yeah, and at some point, did Jose pay you for the charter?
Yes, he gave me a check for the charter.
Natalie, stop.
And that was about 11:30 at night.
You're killing me.
Does the court have personal or subject jurisdiction over the sharks?
Thank you. I have nothing further at this time.
Only if
Thank
they're within
God.
3 miles of the coast.
What
What was the
get out of
point?
that? What was the entire point of that testimony? Why are we here? Why is he wearing the shirt? What is happening?
Although, apparently, Rob,
Some
you have the same
curiosity,
shirt.
What is the dominator?
Apparently I do.
Oh, it's
Thanks, Andy, for
a
the super
sunken
chat.
vessel off the point. It's it was a big shipping vessel that
Carol,
sunk
that's a
years
good
ago,
one.
so it's just a landmark.
Is that off of Torrance Cliffs area near Palos Verdes?
Yes, right at this is the first point beyond Redondo.
KWNY State, thanks so much for the super chat.
Someone say pen is blue. Their pen is blue.
Natalie,
Thank
this
you.
theory makes the most sense.
Thank you, Mom.
Good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Stop
That's my
hitting the microphone.
I know.
Mr.
Elaine.
Anderson, you were interviewed on at least 2 occasions by Detective Zoeller, who's seated here at the council table. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You recognize him?
Yes, I do.
And on both occasions when you were interviewed by Detective Zoeller, did you tell him about what you thought was some unusual behavior by the sons on that trip?
Yes.
And could you tell us now what it was you told the Detective Zoeller about the behavior of the sons?
Well, just the unusual, what we felt was unusual behavior by we, I'm talking about the crew member and my guest, was that the sons stayed at the front of the boat during the whole charter, the bow of the boat, and it was a very choppy, wet day.
What? That's not
And,
unusual.
Upon leaving Marina Del Rey, we actually took a wave over the front of the boat that soaked them. And we were on top of the fly bridge, of course, and didn't get wet, and yet we were still cold. And I believe they were wearing shorts. And we couldn't understand why they were staying up there freezing.
Maybe because they get
Okay,
seasick.
now
It's the
we
best
have
place to
made-
be.
For
Like,
wet
now
or
we've
cold
made it to
weather,
the
I
point
take
of his
it.
witness.
No.
Trying to reenact the deadliest
would there have
catch.
been any particular advantage to being up front? I mean, was there was this
Seasickness.
a trip that was designed to get
Yes.
a good view and that
Well,
was the
there's-
best seat, or?
Some people like to sit up in front of the boat as the boat goes along. There's, some people like that. Some people don't.
Did they appear to be comfortable, or did they appear to be uncomfortable?
They appeared uncomfortable.
And did you tell Detective Zoeller about that as well?
Yes, I did.
And when you say they were uncomfortable, could you describe what their behavior was?
They appeared to be very cold and shivering. And so they were very close to each other and right below us, sitting on the bridge of the boat.
So were they in a position where you could observe them at all times?
I was right over the top of them, yes.
And their father was at the opposite end of the boat?
Yes, he stayed to the rear of the boat.
What did you observe about the interaction of this family? Did they seem to be happy and getting along, or how did they appear to you?
Well, like I said, they were very actually apart during the trip. The sons were up front. Jose was either in the stern of the boat or down below with Kitty, and there wasn't very much interaction going on, verbal interaction going on.
Did
during
it
the trip.
appear that the boys were trying to stay away from their parents?
Sustain.
Yeah, that's speculative.
Did during the 7 hours that they were on the boat, did you see Lyle Menendez spending time with his father or with his mother? Or would you say the majority of the time was in the front of the
The
boat?
majority of the time, Lyle was in the front of the boat.
And how much time would you say out of the 7 hours, and how much time would you say was actually within reaching distance of his father?
Oh, well, I couldn't put a time limit on it really, but it wasn't very long. There was just very few times that Lyle came back from the front of the boat. When we actually caught the sharks, he did. I believe when we stopped during the last shark fishing part, he came back. But most of the time, Lyle was up front. Very, very, very small amount of time was he
So far, this
with
doesn't
Jose. Or
conflict with the defense theory of their case.
And during the times that he was with Jose, those brief times, were there other people around?
well, Eric and myself, I was almost always down
Andy.
and down on the deck,
Mhm.
and my deckhand.
And he's got jokes this morning.
I know, definitely.
Was there a
has jokes.
time change with regard to when this charter was to leave?
Yes, I believe it was originally scheduled for noon, or it was earlier in the day. It wasn't a good time to go out shark fishing.
No.
Would it refresh your
Natalie,
recollection to
he's
look at
too
some
good at
documents as
finding
to the
gifts.
time that it was originally scheduled?
Sure, it might.
May I approach, Your Honor? I've shown these documents to the prosecution. Mark them?
Only if you're going to use them as exhibits. If you just want to show it to them to refresh his memory, you don't have to.
All right.
So I guess
So, got
why
another
the
ad?
prosecution? Why the prosecution call that guy? Because the thing is, I get the defense calling him because it's consistent with their theory of the case that the kids were the victims of abuse by the parents, and that caused the emotional reaction of needing to protect themselves proactively by shooting them. But why the prosecutor call a guy? It doesn't sound like he's helping at all.
Unless it seems like they were trying to suggest that they were somehow poisoning them, because there was a question about them, the parents being sick. There's a question about the beverages that were served on the ship and the two boys trying to stay separate, I guess, or to make it look like they were scheming or something.
So
But like, there's a very easy explanation. Like, I've been on these kind of boats before outside of, off the coast of Southern California in August. Like, if we were talking October, November, December, like there are ships that'll go out for whale watching and all that kind of stuff. Like, that would make a lot less sense for someone to be out front on the bow of the ship, right? On the front of the ship, because it's cold. But in August, like, someone can be out there and just be like, even if the water is cold, it's at least August, right? It's a warmer part of the season. And if you have a tendency to get seasick, that's a perfect place to be because you have the best view of the horizon. So even though you've got the highest movement on the waves, like, you're able to see it, so your body's able to equalize a lot better.
Yep. I don't understand why he was called. And then also, if the prosecutor's presenting the case, I mean, we didn't hear anything about attempted poisoning in the opening statements, right?
No.
So now you're just confusing the jury. And yeah, the chat is now saying all I got from that. I'm not going to sing it out loud, but baby shark.
Yeah. Yep. Same. Which of course did not exist in the 90s. So they were not thinking that, but
I'm surprised he was allowed to roll into court with a stick of Big Red in his mouth and his chest pubes.
That chest was on display.
You ever been to court like that, Rob?
Yeah, right.
It's funny because it's like I know that California has a tendency to have a reputation to be a lot more casual than other places, but I know of many California judges out of the LA County Courthouse, right, that would have big problems with somebody coming in with gum, with soda, with any kind of food or anything like that. There would have been a quiet instruction on the side to say out. So
I mean, that dude was the most bro dude of all the bro dudes that could ever exist.
Yes.
He was a whole vibe.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. A guy that just doesn't really spend much time indoors, I guess. Spends it out on the water among the sharks and the fish and the dolphins and stuff. So, yeah. Well, let's see what happens with the rest of his testimony here.
Audio.
Oh, so sorry.
These documents?
Yes, I do.
So she's going through. Do you recognize
These
this
are,
stuff?
charters agreements and
for the charter?
Or contracts for the charter and charters agreements.
And do you, would you read this particular document here and see if it refreshes your recollection about what time the charter was supposed to be?
Just read it to yourself.
I believe that's correct. I think I was called with time changes a few times on the charter, and I think they eventually asked my opinion, or maybe I asserted my opinion that it wasn't a good time. I don't really remember how that went, but that's an inappropriate time to go out shark fishing, and I think that was probably the reason that we changed the time.
Okay, what was the time?
Well, according to that, 11
And it was changed to what time?
to 3.
And do you remember when that change was? Was it just,
It was most likely that morning. They're kind of slow to get me with that information. It was either that morning or the night before when we started talking about what a good time was to come by.
so when you found out about it, it was within a day or so? When
That's correct.
Either Friday or Saturday morning. And they were scheduled for 3 o'clock, and what time did they actually arrive?
They arrived at somewhere between 4 and 4:30. I think probably closer to 4:30. It seems to me they were about an hour and a half late.
And did this appear to be an event that they were all real excited about?
No, not really. Initially everybody came on the boat and was just kind of, they seemed interested but not really excited.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything on behalf of the co-defendant?
Stop hitting the microphone.
Mr. Anderson, was it your understanding that this trip had a business aspect to it?
That's correct.
And that was because Jose had a new client and wanted to appear knowledgeable about shark fishing?
Yes, I believe he was actually going to go shark fishing and wanted to practice up, basically.
Okay, so this was a trial run.
That's correct.
And the family was brought with Jose on this trial run. Is that correct?
That was
Okay.
how I
Now-
understood it.
You said that there was a crew. Who besides yourself was on the boat from your company?
Richard Campbell.
And he was the deckhand?
Yes, that's correct.
Was there anyone else?
Yes, I had a guest, Leslie Gaskell.
And Leslie Gaskell is female.
That's correct.
When the Menendez family arrived on the boat, was there any discussion about the size?
Yes, there was. Kitty, one of the first statements she said was, I think she thought the boat would be larger.
Okay.
They
And
all do.
was there any remark made concerning Leslie Gaskell, your friend?
Yes, well, I believe it was Kitty that asked who she was, basically, what she was doing there.
And thereafter, Leslie Gaskell stayed up with you on the deck.
She remained on the flybridge, that's correct.
She avoided the family.
That's right.
Now, the family was dressed in shorts.
Yes,
And was this attire appropriate or unusual or?
well,
Probably got chilly.
it's not appropriate, and it's also not really unusual. I mean, some people, if they're not, if they haven't done this before, aren't necessarily prepared to go out dressed the right way.
So this sometimes happens that people come and they don't realize they're going to be cold and wet.
That's correct.
So many innuendos that she has thrown into this.
You said that when you were going out
Ocean of
in
the
the
ocean.
channel, the two boys were sitting on the bow area.
That's correct.
And was this when they were hit by the wave?
Right as we were leaving Marina Del Rey, it's very. It was a choppy day with a good swell, and like I said, be either south or west exit of the Marina Del Rey channel. It exits two directions, and that direction always is is a little rough, but it was very rough coming out because of the wind and the swell.
And did they get soaked?
Yes, they did.
They were just covered with water.
A wave came over and pretty much soaked them.
Okay. And after they were soaked, did they at any time leave to get a towel or to get covering for them?
Gosh, Eric, I know, went back down maybe once or twice during the trip as we were going down to go fish for the bait, but I can't really recall. I don't recall him bringing back a towel, possibly jackets or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, you're talking about he left once or twice during the entire 7-hour trip?
Well, Eric came back a couple times. No, like when we stopped to fish, Eric was back more often than Lyle. Eric was more to the rear of the boat than Lyle was,
Okay.
more to the stern.
And your recollection is he left for the shark fishing, or for the actual catching of the sharks, and also for the area where the seals were.
You're talking about he left the front of the boat
Yes.
during that time. Yes, and like I said, he went back a little more often. I don't, I couldn't tell you exactly during the time when he walked back or.
But for the main part, the boys were by themselves up at the front of the boat.
That's correct.
Would you describe the boys' demeanor as happy?
Well, not knowing him personally, I couldn't tell you how they act normally when they're happy, but no, they weren't like jovial. And
In fact, you've described them in the past as gloomy.
it seemed kind of gloomy.
Okay, and you've described them as rather stoic,
Yes,
because that's how they appeared
There
to
was-
you to be.
very little talking going on.
And there appeared to be a problem in the family.
Yeah.
Was Mr. Menendez a large person?
Yes, he was.
And from the time that you saw him on the boat, would it be fair to describe his demeanor as rather overbearing?
That's kind of on the
Did you
edge. I
observe
don't
anything
know.
unusual about his demeanor during the time you were on the boat?
Well,
Maybe you can take a hint from my previous question.
no, not really. No.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
All right, let's take a recess at this point. We have been going for a period of time, and please, it's appropriate to take a recess. What I'll ask is that just to keep everyone together during these short breaks, we'll have one jury go into this jury room and the other jury go into the jury room next door, and then we'll have you come back when you're all ready, and it'll be a quarter after the hour. So it's a 20-minute recess, and we'll resume at 11:15.
We're probably going to hear some objections here.
Please don't discuss this case with anyone or form any opinions about it. And all right, then we're ready to resume with the testimony of the witness. Ms. Morrissey, did you have anything else? Okay.
Mr. Anderson, was the purpose of this trip to familiarize Mr. Menendez with shark fishing?
That was pretty
Yeah.
freaking leading.
As captain of the boat, was it your job to do that? That is, to teach him about shark fishing?
Well, every time I take any kind of fishing charter out, I try to teach people about it, but it's not really necessarily my job. The deckhand's there to do the same thing. And
Did you make any efforts, or did you do anything to try and familiarize Mr. Menendez with shark fishing?
sure, yes, I did.
And that was in an attempt to teach him?
Pardon me?
That was in an effort to teach him?
Yes.
Is that right? Could you describe for us his reaction to your efforts to teach him?
Weird
He says,
question.
I put my pole
let
in
me
his
think
hand.
about
I'm
that
gonna lose it.
I'm not sure his reactions and like I probably
very
never
broad
sat down and
question.
specifically said, here, do, as we're fishing. But when I explained it, like I said, I explained, what we'd be doing beforehand before we left. And as he asked individual questions about the fishing, then I guess his reaction was kind of a, yeah, I know about it. Tell me about it, but I know about it.
Okay, he seemed impatient.
No, I wouldn't say impatient.
Okay, abrupt.
The abduction is unauthorized.
Well, that static is killing me.
Yeah,
Can you describe his reaction?
Kind of what I said, like I want to hear about it, but I know about it. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like this was like a
All right, any
business
other
trip.
cross-examination? All right, redirect.
At this point, my dad would have sent me up to slap the TV.
Yeah.
All the static.
Yeah.
Harrison, you said that the brothers were not dressed appropriately for this outing.
that's correct.
How were they dressed?
I believe they were wearing short pants and possibly polo shirts. I'm not sure, but it seems like it.
And were the parents dressed appropriately for this outing?
No, they weren't. Jose was wearing short pants also.
And it was actually middle of summer, August 19th, but
It was
cold.
it was breezy, and we were going to be out at night.
You were indicating that this particular time wasn't an appropriate time to shark fish. Is that correct?
The time when we actually went out, or the
Yes.
time? It was a little early. Yeah, we normally would either go later at night or earlier in the morning.
What are the times, generally speaking?
Well, generally, I'd like to leave dock around 6 p.m. if we were going to go in for an afternoon one. And I think the reason that we left it, or that we decided on 3, was because it was kind of a compromise with their schedule and when I thought was a good time. I believe that's how it worked out.
So are there generally two times you would go out on a shark fishing expedition?
Yes,
What are those times?
either early morning, 3:30, 4 a.m., or 6 p.m.
So you went out a little earlier than the
Yeah, a
afternoon.
little earlier than.
At some point, did you say that the brothers brought jackets from the Catalani?
Yeah, I believe possibly Eric went down and brought back jackets. I think they were wearing jackets later in the evening.
Yeah, question?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you a report in the highlighted areas and see if you recognize the report.
I don't understand the point of them like leaving at an improper time. Like what that does for anyone's case.
I don't understand the entire purpose of this witness.
From the prosecution's perspective, yeah, absolutely nothing from their perspective.
Yes, I recognize
You
it.
do.
Uh-huh.
Had you given a report of family members being excited about Kitty Menendez being excited about seeing the seals?
Yes.
And in that report, did you indicate that the family would point out where the seals were for her?
I'm not sure. May I look at it again?
Okay, so we're about to get a commercial break again. Managed to mute it in time.
Well done.
Thank you. So this whole witness, I still don't understand why the prosecution called him in the first place, because he's done absolutely nothing for the prosecution and he's potentially given fodder for the defense.
Yeah, and you got to think the jury's sitting there going, "Why are we here?" I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he spent the entire direct testimony asking about where people were on the ship, what they were drinking, whether someone caught a shark. I don't know. Is it maybe to show that like the family was doing things together, perhaps? To be like, this is a family that is I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like if anything, it undermined their theory of the case, that this was the decision of the brothers was somehow financially motivated. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, very, very, very strange. But nevertheless, let's continue. Whoops, not that one. That one. There we go. All right.
Mr. Anderson, do you recall that family members would call out to Kitty and tell her that there was a seal on this side of the boat?
I recall Jose getting her attention about the seal initially, and when she came out, and then I don't recall in particular who called to her and told her that there were seals around the boat.
To say that they're communicating.
I think it was just everyone as it would pop up around the boat would say, "There's the seal," you know, and but I don't remember who in particular or.
To say that the boys weren't afraid of them or something?
Yes.
Now, you indicated, or do you recall now whether or not all of the family became somewhat ill on this trip?
I believe so. Well, I know for a fact that, Jose did. And Kitty, like I said, I believe got ill right away going out. And I believe my deckhand actually saw her getting ill, but I'm not positive about that. And upon reading my review, or the review of what I stated before, the whole family was queasy.
Which makes sense why the boys were up front.
In regarding the enthusiasm of the family, do you recall what the mood was like when the sharks were caught?
Well, everyone was excited to see the sharks caught, and that was one of the few times we had everyone together.
And as you pulled back to the berth, what was your impression of the outing that had occurred?
Well, coming back to the berth is a lot better. Once you come into the marina and once you come into the channel, the water calms down. People know they're coming home, so everybody on any charter, everybody gets pretty kind of happy. And if you're seasick, sometimes it'll just go away the minute that you pull into the actual channel itself. So, the family seemed more upbeat once we came in. I think they seemed like they were happy with the charter, and discussing it with Jose afterwards, he said he was very happy with it. And I should like to do it again.
Thank you.
Yes.
No more.
Did the boys appear to be relieved to be back at the berth?
Relieved.
Well, you described them as being.
Yeah, everybody's more uplifted. I think everybody was. Sure. Yes.
It's also
Did
kind of
they,
late when you get back.
That's fine. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, you're on.
Okay, thank you. You may step down, get back to your sharks.
All right, the next witness, please.
The next witness is Richard Catalani.
Okay, I'm gonna take this.
My name
break.
is Richard
I got a
William
meeting.
Cut.
Yeah. So, Detective Seeds, thanks so much for coming out and hanging out with us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course. So good luck in your meeting. I hope everything goes well.
Yeah, appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you at the next one.
And for folks And for folks that are new to Detective C's, he is linked in the description below, along with Rob, Law and Lumber. So if you guys are unfamiliar with either of them, be sure to check them out, watch their stuff. So I guess especially if you like gaming content, but
The Nerd
yeah,
Channel.
that's awesome. We're fans of nerd channels around here.
That's right. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Of course. You too. All right. Okay. So we've got another mustache.
Another mustache. Oh, this
Fantastic.
one's good too.
I like this suit and tie combo also. This is a good look. Yeah. Yeah.
Catalani, Catalani.
Let's see if
Mr. Catalani, what do you do for a living, please?
I'm a criminalist employed by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
What kind of education or training did you obtain in order to be hired as a criminalist, sir?
I have a bachelor's degree from California State University at Northridge. My major is in biology. My minor is in chemistry. Following graduation, I did a 12-month internship in toxicology at SmithKline Clinical Laboratories, where I was employed until 1985. In 1985, I was hired by the Sheriff's Department. I've worked in the toxicology, narcotics, serology sections, and I'm currently assigned to the firearms identification section.
How long were you assigned to the serology section, sir?
Approximately 4 years.
Could you tell the jury, please, what a criminalist is?
A criminalist is a person that gathers and analyzes physical evidence and prepares a report for presentation in court.
Now, I noticed that you said that you work for the Sheriff's Department and not the Beverly Hills Police Department. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are there certain police agencies within the County of Los Angeles who contract with the Sheriff's Department to perform certain criminalist functions for them?
Laboratory services, yes, that's true.
And so that's fairly common for a police department that is smaller than the Sheriff's or the Los Angeles Police Department.
Yes, it is.
Were you asked to make a comparison or analyze a substance found on a pair of tennis shoes?
Yes, I was.
Your Honor, may I approach, please, and mark this next exhibit, which is a paper bag, and its contents is Exhibit 11, please?
Exhibit 14.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You have a moment, please, take these to the defense.
Yeah. I still can't get over the shoulder pads.
yeah. That's a very 90s headband too. I remember those. Those are the kind of headbands that would give headaches.
Mm-hmm. And the navy style with the gold button, double-breasted.
Double-breasted.
Mm-hmm.
Your Honor, I've now placed an evidence sticker on the bag. May I approach, please? By the way, Mr. Catalani, before I show this to you, have you ever qualified as an expert in the analysis of blood before in court?
Yes, I have.
How many times did you say you've qualified?
Approximately 35 or 40 times.
And you've were in the serology department approximately 4 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Showing you the contents of this bag, which is People's 14, I'd like you to, I will actually remove the contents, which is another bag, which is smaller. It seems to have,
Bagception.
among other writings, your signature on it and the date 12/12/90. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and removing the contents of this bag, I'd like to ask you if you recognize the items which are contained within the smaller bag.
Ooh, I think those
Yes,
are
I
Mama's
do.
shoes.
And could you describe them briefly for the record, please?
It's a pair of white women's tennis shoes with bloodstains.
Okay, and how do you know they're bloodstains?
I did a test to determine that they were indeed human blood.
Were you able to determine any further kinds of blood typing so that someone could identify them more particularly?
Wait a second.
No, I was not.
You
Oh,
were
come
not.
on.
I was unable to determine any other blood typing results.
All right, well, why was that?
Sorry,
I
guys.
don't know. It could be that the length of storage between the deposit of the blood and the time of analysis was too great. The samples may have deteriorated.
Have a moment, please, Your Honor.
Yes.
Did you, when you determined that there was blood on the shoes, did you focus on a particular portion of the shoes?
I tested blood stains that I located on both the bottoms and the tops of both of the shoes.
And did you determine that there was in fact human blood on the bottom and the tops of both of the shoes?
Yes, I did.
And that was as far as you could get with your analysis?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further at this witness.
Cross-examination?
Sweet and simple.
Mr. Catalani, you opined that perhaps the reason why you couldn't get further blood typing on those stains on the shoes was the deterioration due to the passage of time. Is that one of your theories?
Yeah, that's one of the possibilities, yes.
When were those shoes first submitted to the Sheriff's Department by the Beverly Hills Police?
I believe in September of 1990.
Ooh.
And did you do your testing on them in September of 1990?
If I may refer to my notes, I can give you an exact date.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor, to see what he's referring to?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Introducing some more reasonable
I
doubt.
have some handwritten notes on laboratory paper that indicate that I started my testing on them on December 12th of 1990.
And do you have any indication of when you received the articles from the Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes, I have a laboratory receipt. Shows that they were submitted on September 21st of 1990.
Now, let me ask you a hypothetical. If this were a sheriff's investigation case and they had removed items that they suspected had blood on them from a crime scene on August 20th, okay? Ordinarily, would they turn those items with suspected blood over to the laboratory within 24 hours?
Position irrelevant.
By the way, I
Is
love
there a
her
need
style.
to refrigerate suspected blood in order to
Yeah.
keep it from deteriorating?
Yes, the best storage conditions are dried and then frozen.
Okay. And is there a protocol in the sheriff's laboratory for how soon after obtaining suspected blood evidence it should be subject to this preservation method?
As soon as possible.
Oy.
When you received these items on September 21st, did you have any information from the Beverly Hills Police Department as to when they had been gathered?
I believe I did, but I don't recall what that time frame was at this point.
After you received them, how were they stored?
In frozen storage.
And your examination was conducted in December of 1990?
Yes.
And when did you prepare a report revealing the results of that examination, that the stains were human blood?
I have several reports, the first of which was December 20th, 1990.
Let's separate that from them.
Sure.
And did you do a supplemental report?
Yes, I did.
And what's the date of that one?
February 1st, 1992.
Thank you. May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Can I borrow this?
Sure.
Andrea Elisi, thanks so much for your super chat. I don't have any plans, but I'm gonna note that. I'm gonna note that. Thank you so much.
I have nothing for you.
I just have a quick question.
All right.
Mr. Catalani, I think you indicated that you're.
Wait, hold on. Did you have any questions, Mr. Bird?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You said you were a criminalist?
Yes,
is that
sir.
right? And you said a criminalist is someone who gathers evidence?
On occasions, yes.
Did you gather any evidence in this case?
No, sir, I did
As
not.
in going to the crime scene and looking and see what happened?
No, sir, I did not.
Is your department somehow connected with the Beverly Hills Police Department so that if a criminalist is needed at a crime scene, you or someone in your capacity would go out and help them investigate a crime scene?
We are available to, yes.
Do they have their own criminalists?
I'm not exactly sure what they have.
In any event, you weren't asked to go out and evaluate this crime scene, is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you ever asked to look at any photographs of the crime scene to see what you as a criminalist could tell about it?
I have seen some of the photographs. I was not asked to draw an opinion from those photographs.
Nobody asked you to make any opinions based on your expertise?
Not from the photographs, no.
That's all I have, thank you.
Any redirect?
Briefly. Mr. Catalani, I believe you testified that your receipt indicates the shoes were received on December the 21st.
September the
Thank you.
21st.
That was my question.
Thank you. You may step down. You're excused.
Thank you.
We have a brief for the next witness.
Okay. We'll take a recess here as far as the jurors are concerned, and we'll resume at 1:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone or form any opinions about it, and we'll resume at 1:30. Each jury, please go to your respective jury rooms at 1:30, and then we'll call you in when we're ready. And the jurors have left the courtroom. Counsel have a brief matter to discuss regarding admissibility of evidence.
Yes, I get to understand you're on the Detective Zoeller for one of several appearances, and I'm not sure all the things he's going to be requested to testify to, but we were informed that he is ostensibly going to testify that the next day, the Menendez brothers returned to the house to pick up their tennis rackets. We would object to that as inappropriate so-called character evidence not relevant to any issue in the case.
Anybody else want to be
There's an
heard?
additional objection. The way this came out was in a pretrial.
I recall that.
I'm sorry.
I recall it coming out in a pretrial hearing.
And the specific way it was phrased by Detective Zoeller was he indicated he wasn't present when they went into the house. And he said, in answer to the question, what personal items did they want to pick up? He said, the main thing that I remember, they wanted to pick up tennis equipment. It's unclear based on the state of the record whether they said that or that's his speculation as to their state of mind. And if it's based on his speculation as to state of mind, I think the objection is no personal knowledge.
Well, obviously, if he saw them pick up the tennis rackets, that would be direct evidence of what they did.
Well, he also indicates that they picked up other things. What I'm concerned about is that he's speculating that their primary motivation here was to come to the house at 5:30 in the morning to pick up tennis equipment. And I think there's insufficient foundation for him to speculate in that regard unless they said, we're here specifically to pick up the tennis equipment.
Well, let me inquire of the prosecution, what is the offer of proof as far as what will be said?
That the defendants came back, that they asked Detective Zoeller to pick up the tennis rackets, but the tennis rackets were in their family room, which is the room of the homicide, and that he would not let them in to get the tennis rackets.
All right. Did you wish to be heard further on your objection, then, Mr. Burt?
No, just on lack of discovery, that's the first time we've ever heard that they indicated that because in the transcript, he's very clear that they said items. There was no mention of any tennis rackets, so we have an additional objection that is a denial of discovery based on their statements.
Well, certainly the subject was disclosed during pretrial hearings dealing with activities at the crime scene, the defendant's statements at the crime scene, and the defense has had possession of that for several months. Well, that's your characterization of it having changed. That perhaps is something that can be dealt with on cross-examination, but his testimony at the pretrial hearing certainly related to why they came to the scene and their stated purpose in being there. And if it's at variance with his testimony here and it's significant to counsel to pursue it, then you can certainly cross-examine him on it. As far as the
objection that it is inadmissible character evidence. It's certainly circumstantial evidence of their state of mind very shortly after the events that are at issue in this case. And as such, the court finds that it is admissible and relevant evidence and not prejudicial, but highly probative, and the probative value substantially outweighs any prejudicial effect, and the court would permit it.
I have an additional objection, Your Honor, which is I don't think it'd be permissible for Detective Zoeller to refer to the fact that he had contact with the defendant's lawyers. I think that's a comment on the right to counsel. I don't know what the relevancy of that would be.
Well, is that going to be offered, that there was some contact with a lawyer? Or?
I wasn't going to ask about it. And, the court at this time can tell Detective Zoeller not to mention it. And unless the defense wants to ask him, I wasn't going to ask him.
All right, so I don't know how it would have been brought out unless somebody asked a question relating to it.
Generally speaking,
If
that's how it
there is
works.
some relevance to it, then the fact there was a lawyer there might be admissible evidence. I don't know what it would prove or disprove. At this point, the prosecution doesn't intend to offer it, and the defense doesn't want to offer it, and no one asks a question that's specifically addressing an attorney's presence, and Detective Zoeller is instructed not to make any reference to it. All right, anything else now before we take our recess?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll be in recess until 1.
All right. Yes, got it again.
That judge he's a mood of his own, isn't he?
He really is. He definitely is.
Like, no pleasantries. He did make a joke today, though. Like, we'll let you
About
get
the
back to your sharks.
Yeah. But he definitely is all business, which, I mean, I kind of appreciate in a judge, right? But yeah, it doesn't have any real pleasantries being exchanged.
Yeah, pretty much like, well, if they're not going to ask a question about it, then why am I dealing with this now? Like, don't make me make stupid rulings.
Yeah, that's fair, right? Yeah. So it's interesting because the last witness that we heard from, Mr. Catalani, it was interesting because, like, if we had a witness like that in a court
Trial
today, whoops, sorry, we just got back from the commercial break, but I paused it. If we had a witness like that today, that would have been a much more extensive bit of testimony, right? Because we're talking about DNA, we're talking about like how they test for the DNA, but it was short enough that it was actually relatively damaging for the prosecution, I think, right? Because they were like, yeah, we have human blood on mom's shoes, which I don't think they actually identified whose shoes that they were, but they looked like they were women's shoes.
They didn't identify whose they were, and it was. Now you kind of have to view the whole like damaging the prosecution based on the public's perception and knowledge of DNA. And back then, DNA was not. The public at large didn't have the same understanding that they do now. Now we expect a witness like that to go along.
Right. But the reason why I think it was damaging is because on cross-examination, the defense attorneys were able to basically say, like, now how much time passed before you were able to test these, and what needs to happen in order for this kind of evidence to actually be preserved. And, there's this very specific process, and that didn't happen here. So it's like, okay, so you maybe established that these are human blood, but what happened in the time in between the death and then the testing? Like, where were these shoes, right? Like what happened here? Even though, like, it probably is at the end of the day a distinction without a difference, because it's not disputed that the boys killed their parents, right? So, but I'm wondering if maybe it's just every hit that they can make on the police in this case to make them look like they were not properly investigating all of this stuff can make it seem like, like they what other things did they get wrong here, right? If they didn't follow various procedures and they don't look like they're doing the things that they should be doing, by knowing which detective was in charge of the overall like evidence gathering, and who was in charge of getting those rifles out of the closet and checking them, right, and trying to figure out like if there's any way of getting any sort of forensic evidence off of those. It just, so far it seems like the defense has done a pretty good job of opening up enough questions about this investigation to say like, hey, look, things weren't really done exactly properly here.
Yeah, I mean, and we all have to be mindful. Like, this is, look, we've talked about it before, where the defense is sitting here saying, what about this question, investigation? And it's like, well, what does it really matter? Didn't they do the thing that they're alleged as having done? So the defense is doing a good job with what they have. They just don't have a lot to work with. Like,
yeah,
the chat is right. There's no disputing these boys shot their parents. The defense doesn't have a whole lot to work with. They're trying to use whatever they can to try and angle these witnesses towards their side. And I could watch, what's the blonde attorney, the frizzy haired?
Oh God, I
could watch her cross-examine all day. Like, she just did the whole mood, like the chill, laid back, super confident, like just sitting there asking, not condescending, but also clearly the one in control of the questions. I love that style of cross.
Leslie Abramson. Thank you, Carol, in the chat.
Oh, I love that style of cross.
Yeah. She definitely looks very comfortable. She looks very like she definitely comes across as very assertive and almost like angry on behalf of her client, but it doesn't come across. I mean, she just comes across like a boss bitch.
Yeah, well, she doesn't come across like a bitch. She comes across like I'm in charge. Like, answer my questions. Look, I know we're all here, but there's not disrespect, and it's not openly abrasive in these moments. I'm sure that she can probably change.
Yeah.
But
So far it's I'm very much enjoying her performance for sure. All right. Let's continue here. We've got a few more minutes on this one, and then we'll be getting to the next portion, which will be the next detective, the next witness.
With their attorneys, if people are represented, the juries are not present. Just take an opportunity here to discuss with counsel the conduct of counsel in regards to the media in and around the courthouse. It's brought to my attention that Ms. Abramson, you were involved in an interview just outside the front door of the courthouse during the lunch hour.
Uh-oh.
And that was not in the designated area.
How do they chase us, Your Honor? I mean, we can't keep them.
Well, it's my understanding that you were involved in a separate interview, and others of the media became aware of that interview and went over to where you were conducting your interview.
Oh, no.
If you want to know what happened, Your Honor, I will tell you what happened. When we walked out of the courthouse, the entire media was grouped at the top of the courthouse steps. We told them we would not talk to them there, and that one of the defendant's relatives was going to make a statement, but only at the back end, which was the designation.
Even now, she's leaning
Laurel
back,
Erickson
like
told me
chilling.
that she wanted to do a series of interviews with myself, Ms. Lansing, and Ms. Morrissey. I said, later. We went to the back where the family member and Mr. Burt talked to the media. When I walked back around to the front, Laurel Erickson was interviewing Ms. Morrissey. Then she interviewed, and the media chased us from the back, having nothing to do with what Laurel Erickson was doing, chased us all the way down the side, continuing to ask questions, because they don't stay there, they follow us, and they follow the witnesses, and they follow the family everywhere. So when I came back around the front, Ms. Morrissey was doing the interview with Laurel Erickson, then Ms. Lansing did the interview with Laurel Erickson, then I did the interview with Laurel Erickson. Now, if everybody wants to blame me, fine, I'm guilty.
All right, that's the explanation that you give. I have no reason to dispute that. But then Ms. Morrissey was conducting an interview in the front of the courthouse, which is in violation of the rule that there be interviews only conducted in designated areas.
Well, the bottom line is.
Wait, one thing at a
Whoa.
time. You're not the spokesperson for everybody here. So, Ms. Morrissey, what do you have to say?
Your Honor, the interview was done in the place it was done, and I apologize for the fact that it wasn't in front of the courthouse, but it was done actually in effort to avoid media and to avoid the horrible press and crush of people that was in the back, and we were trying to do it away from people. And that is the reason why it occurred where it did. It was ultimately unsuccessful because the media swarmed around when Ms. Abramson came back.
All right. Well, anybody who is involved in this case in any way, shape, or form is to participate in interviews only in the designated areas, period. And if the people ask you questions or try to ask you questions outside that area, your position has to be, I cannot talk to you, period. And if the press continues to attempt to interview you in those areas, let me know about it. And the electronic media knows that their access to this courtroom is dependent upon their behavior, both inside and outside of the courtroom. And if they can't behave
Throwing
properly,
shade at the
then
media.
the court would take appropriate action to deal with the situation so that it won't occur in the future.
You know what? This is a good judge nipping this in
I
the
took
bud.
a back route from which the court press officer had explained to me how to do it, because they meet me halfway between here and the place I parked my car, which is about 2 blocks away. And you have 10, 15, 20 people with cameras and microphones, and you can't walk. It was the same thing today. You couldn't get down the stairs. You were surrounded by people. It is an incredibly frightening experience. All of these people there, you can't move. People are screaming questions at you, and they do not stay in that
Dealing with a
area.
high-profile
And
trial?
I find myself sneaking behind buildings to get into the courthouse.
All right. Is this primarily the electronic media?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Well, the
Electronic
court
media.
will cause the electronic media to receive the message that if they continue to behave in an inappropriate fashion that conflicts with the orderly process of this trial, then their access to the courtroom will be terminated. And that is something that they have to be aware of. And if they feel that these interviews outside the courtroom are more significant than their opportunity to have access to the proceedings in the courtroom, then that'll be their decision and they'll have to live with it. So that is the message, but counsel, again, have to comply with the court's provisions in regards to where interviews are to be conducted and refrain from being interviewed outside of those sites, regardless of what's going on, regardless of what sort of questions are being asked or who is asking the questions.
You know, Your Honor, every morning when I approach, I usually come a little later. They usually go away by then. But every morning when I approach, a phalanx of camera people, both television and still camera, blocks the staircase. So I have to walk through that phalanx every morning and be filmed all the way, and people are staring, and I try to come late to make sure our jury's in. But I don't know that our jurors see it, and it's just, you cannot get away from them. When we went down at lunch, for example, it was our intention to go to the back of the family member so she could give her interview. They were completely spread across the front of the courthouse, and my first words were, "You're not supposed to be here. Go to the back." And they said, "Oh, we just wanted to make sure you were coming. We wanted to make sure we caught you." So, I mean, that's the excuse they used to swarm the front, but we walked to the back.
All right, well, the matter has been aired and counsel are ordered to comply with the court's direction as to where to conduct these or participate in these interviews. Certainly, you're not under any obligation to participate in any interviews, but if you do, they should all be done in the same place, which is away from the entrance to the courthouse. And the court, again, reiterates that if the electronic media that wants access to this courtroom can't behave in a more appropriate fashion, then that access will be terminated. All right, anything before the juries come in?
Quickly, Your Honor, did the court get my new updated list?
I received it, I haven't looked at it, but I
I just want
received
to make
it.
sure you got it.
Yes.
Secondly,
we're having a great deal of trouble getting good copies of these tapes that we're going to play this afternoon. I think I have two that are fairly good. At the conclusion of today's session, may I take them with me, and I'll make further copies, because we need two copies of each tape.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there because we are basically at the end of that one, and I'm going to go on to the next one, so that we can get some more testimony here. So we can hear from Detective Leslie Zoeller.
Mm-hmm. Who remembers copying tapes and you had to do it based on the original? If you made a copy of a copy, it sounded like crap.
I vaguely remember.
Oh, copies of tapes.
Like I do remember having VHS tapes that were like, recordings of TV shows and things like that. But you could only do that so much, because right, like they would quickly fill up. The storage wasn't so great on those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just walk around now and educate people on this was a boom box. Why do you call it a boom box? My boom box had 2 cassette tapes I could record on one. Nostalgia is fun.
It is fun. It is really fun. All right, let's hear from Detective Zoeller. Okay. Let's see just how bungled this investigation really was, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Trial, we have both juries present as well as both defendants and all counsel, and we're ready to resume with the proceedings. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the people called Detective Leslie Zoeller to the stand.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please take the stand and state your name for the record.
Leslie H. Zoeller, Zoeller.
And another mustache.
Detective Zoeller, what do you do for a living, please?
I am a police officer for the city of Beverly Hills assigned to the detective division.
As of right now, how long have you been a police officer?
20 and a half years.
How many years have you been at Beverly Hills?
17 and a half years.
And prior to that, did you work for the Gardena Police Department?
That's correct.
Back on the 20th of August of 1989, were you assigned as a detective for the Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes, I was.
And what was your particular assignment at that time, please?
I was assigned to the robbery homicide division.
In the early morning hours of the 21st of August of 1989, did you respond to the location at 722 North Elm Drive in the city of Beverly Hills and the county of Los Angeles?
Yes, I did.
When you got to that particular location, did you notice if any other police officers were already there?
Yes.
Okay. As a detective, did you have a different kind of duty from a patrol officer?
Yes, I do.
And when you respond to a scene such as the one we're going to talk about, do you arrive in a uniform, or are you wearing a suit, or how
I wear a suit.
Okay. And as a detective, what are your responsibilities as they differ from somebody who works patrol?
At a crime scene, my responsibility is, one, to take the crime scene over from patrol officers and to investigate and direct the investigation at the crime scene.
Now, when you got to this particular location, do you remember about what time it was that you finally arrived?
It's approximately 1 a.m. on the 21st of August.
And at the time, did you have a partner detective named Tom Lenahan?
Yes.
Do you remember if you arrived before or after him?
We both arrived at the same time. We met at the station.
And when you got there, did you in fact take command of the crime scene?
Yes.
In that regard, did you supervise the collection of evidence?
Yes.
Now, in photographs which were placed on the board this morning, did you recognize the 2 decedents in the photograph?
Yes, I did.
And within that room, did you direct the collection of evidence?
Yes.
First of all, let me ask you this. Did you look for any expended shotgun shells?
Yes.
Did you find any expended shotgun shells?
No, I did not.
Did you collect or direct to be collected the shoes from Mrs. Menendez? Or was that done elsewhere?
That was done elsewhere.
And was that done at the coroner's office
That's correct.
in your presence?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach, please, with Exhibit 14?
Detective, how long did it take you to do your hair before getting to the
Detective, how often do you trim your mustache?
It was a majestic, like,
Yes.
rock
I'm
of
showing
hair.
you the two
Very well
shoes which have
coiffed.
been marked as the contents of the paper bag, which is People's 14. Do you recognize these shoes, sir?
Yes, I do.
And were they, in fact, taken by you from the coroner's office to be booked at Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes.
And later on, were they referred to the Sheriff's Department for analysis?
Yes, they were.
In addition to collecting this pair of shoes, did you also, at the crime scene in the early morning hours of the 21st, collect something having to do with shotgun ammunition?
Yes.
Okay, could you briefly tell the jury what you collected and what your understanding is of it?
Let me clarify that I myself did not do the collection of the evidence itself, that I had the Beverly Hills Identification Bureau do the collection. I, as an investigator, direct them in what evidence to collect.
Okay, and they wear gloves and use tweezers and things like that?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you ask them to collect wadding from the crime scene?
Yes, I did.
Okay, could you briefly tell the jury what wadding is?
Wadding is a component within a shotgun shell where, if I could explain how the shotgun shell is made up, there's a plastic tube, which is the shotgun shell itself. On the bottom is the primer, or the brass plate, which has the primer in it. Then on top of the primer is the gunpowder. On top of the powder is wadding. And then that wadding is also called spacers. There's, depending on the shot of the shotgun shell, is dependent upon how much wadding or spacers there are. And then there's a spacer that holds the shotgun pellets themselves.
So the spacer separates the gunpowder from the pellets?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, it's made out of various things depending on the manufacturer?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many waddings were collected from the scene?
Well, at this point, I'm going to object. I don't think this witness's expertise has been demonstrated in the area of ballistics.
Ooh.
So that you could offer an opinion as to how many total waddings were there.
Okay, I'll rephrase the question. How many pieces of wadding were collected at the crime scene?
13.
Did you also attend the
That's a good
autopsy
objection.
of Mr. and Mrs.
Snippy?
Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Those
And
two
they were
don't like each
conducted on
other.
the same day?
No, they were not.
And it also cuts down on the
But you
sense of his
attended both of them,
expertise.
is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you in fact collect pieces of wadding from the coroner after having retrieved them from the bodies?
Yes.
And how many pieces of wadding did you retrieve?
From the bodies themselves, there was 2, and I believe there was one additional one that was within the clothing of Jose Menendez.
And did you book those items into evidence?
Yes, I did.
In addition to collecting wadding, both from the crime scene and from the coroner's office, did you also collect some pellets at the crime scene?
Yes.
Okay, and generally, where were the pellets collected from?
From around the bodies. It was collected from within the couch, on the floor. I don't believe we requested they dig out any from the walls.
All right. I'm going to back up. Your Honor, I have a series. I have 2 photographs that are identical. I'd like you to mark this.
Getting sexy bots. Time to turn on subscribers only.
The chat needs to take it easy on Paisley. Cut the crap on Paisley. I have Paisley ties. There are different styles of Paisley.
Are you feeling personally attacked?
Feeling personally attacked here. Like,
Yes.
Paisley's terrible. No, there's different types of Paisley, people.
It's a photograph of the bottom of the tennis shoe, which has been previously marked.
All right, and those are the tennis shoes that you referred to in your testimony as Exhibit 14, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that the condition or the placement of the tennis shoe as you saw it at the crime scene in the early morning hours of the 21st of August?
Yes.
Now, referring back to the items that you collected or directed to be collected, did you bring those here to court today, or did you actually get them from a criminalist today?
The tennis shoes you're referring to?
Blown
No,
up
I'm
these
sorry, I'm talking
photos.
about the wadding and the pellets.
I brought them up to court. They were brought by the criminalist to court, or to the courthouse.
Your Honor, I have the 2 envelopes
Mark, the first one as exhibit 16, and the second one is exhibit 17, please.
All right, the envelopes and their contents, 16 and 17.
Thank you. I have Kirk, please, Your Honor.
Yes.
Showing you first exhibit 16. Would you please open the envelope and indicate what you're doing for the record?
Okay, I'm opening the envelope, which is sealed by a Los Angeles County Sheriff Scientific Services Bureau Criminals Laboratory seal. And I'm taking out the contents, which are numerous envelopes.
Your Honor, for the clerk, should I label these A through whatever?
Yes.
All right. The first one I'm going to label as 16A. For the record, the tag indicates shotgun pellet. I'm not going to ask the detective to open it. Okay. And this is a Beverly Hills Police Department property tag. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And normally those tags indicate what's inside. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Could I ask the council identify what the Beverly Hills receipt number is on these envelopes?
Okay, the register number on this particular one is, they all have the same number. Register number 29144.
Is there an item number?
Okay,
And
counsel, you can get that later on. She's not opening each one individually at this point, so.
Yeah, I was
you can
gonna
do
say,
that at,
This
for
is something
recess or
that
something.
could be
Go ahead.
done outside of the presence
Okay,
of the jury.
16A is
Jury
item
does not need to be
24.
present for that.
16B is item 21. Could you please, I'm not going to have you open all of these, but as an example, would you open 16B and indicate to us what you find inside, please?
Again, this envelope is secured by a Los Angeles County tag. And I'm trying to rip it open without destroying it. And inside are 3 individual plastic envelopes, clear plastic. One of them has 2 distorted pellets. Another envelope has a piece of white plastic. And the third envelope has a portion of a spacer or a wadding.
Okay, now,
Just for the record, that is Exhibit 16B,
yes, that's correct, Your
and
Honor.
it has item number on it for council's benefit of what?
I said, I think 21, so I'm going to look again. It's item 21. Okay,
I might add that the 3 clear plastic envelopes are individually listed 21A, B, and C.
and 21 is the item number for the tag, correct?
Correct.
All right, now, do you know, first of all, referring to the item number 21C, there's a piece of white plastic. Do you know what that is?
Specifically, no. We assumed at the time, because there was other pieces of white plastic, that was a plastic bracelet.
So this isn't part of a person or anything. This is just plastic, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then referring to, you talked about 2 distorted pellets. That would be item 21B. And lastly, you said there's a spacer or wadding, which appears to be some sort of paper type substance in 21A. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to replace those in the envelope, Your Honor, and staple it shut.
I ripped it open.
Okay, so I wasn't the only one to catch
Next one
that.
is
I see it in the
item
chat.
11.
He said specifically instead of specifically.
Yeah, I heard it too. Yeah, specifically.
All right, this appears to be a shotgun wad. So could you open 16C, please, and remove the contents?
This one in particular is only secured by a staple, which I'm taking out. And inside is a plastic wadding.
Okay. Your Honor, for the record, this smaller envelope says item number 11 on it, and it's the only thing inside of the envelope. I'm holding it up. It's a piece of plastic. So I think you indicated earlier that wadding is sometimes made of plastic and sometimes made of paper.
That's correct.
Okay. So now we've seen 2 examples, the paper and the plastic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Certainly.
All right, moving along, I'm going to continue to mark and perhaps open a couple more. $16D would be a shotgun pellet. It's item 3, and I'm not going to open it. 16E indicates a shotgun wad. I'm not going to open this. This is item number 14. 16F.
You don't have to mark things now if you're not using them with this witness. So let's just get to something that you.
Yeah, he's like, hurry up.
He's like, why are we doing this?
All right, Your Honor,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Although the chat is really
Yes.
being very entertaining right now.
I've enjoyed very much. I can't take the headband.
She put a mark
seriously.
on it. You can look at it later on and verify what it is.
In the specific
There's no need to
motion.
go through marking exhibits at this point. It can be done when council have time at a recess rather than with a jury in the box.
All right, Your Honor, for the record, then I've marked 16A through F, and there are
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Pacifically.
Yeah.
Pacifically.
Yep.
Oh, chat. Thank you. I needed that because that was like, we're going to open and close these the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely is the kind of thing that will very quickly lose the jury, right? I mean, if we're bored, the jury's bored, right? So, yeah, this is one of those times when the judge is kind of saving all of us by saying, okay, well, you can do this during a recess. Let's only go through what you actually need for this one, which really only benefits the prosecution here, right? Because they may have completely forgotten about where her last question was before she started opening all of these envelopes, which was about the pellets and the wadding and where he found
Yeah,
stuff.
like
and what he
I
analyzed.
forgot where the last question was before she started opening all those envelopes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, now we're back. Let's see how much longer we go through envelopes.
I'd like to get to some specific questions, please.
13 other envelopes contained within 16. Okay. Now, Detective Zoeller, when you were inside of the home, did you also conduct a search of that home to see what was inside?
Yes.
And did you see some rifles inside of the house?
Yes, I did.
Could you describe for the jury where you found those rifles?
They were in the master bedroom dressing area, which had the walk-in closets. And they were on the northern portion of the closet on the east side of the dressing room. And they were standing up.
Okay. Did you physically examine those rifles?
Yes,
And did you notice whether or not they were loaded?
they were not loaded.
Did you seize those rifles?
I did not.
Why not?
Because the crime scene was the family room. It was determined that it didn't go any further than the family room, and the weapons that were used for the murder was a shotgun.
And the items that you saw in the closet were rifles, is that correct?
22 caliber rifles, correct.
I feel like
In
there's
addition
some
to
assumptions
looking at
going
the
on there,
wadding
though.
and collecting or ordering the collection of the pellets, did you look for shotgun shells?
Yes.
Did you see any shotgun shells?
No, I did not.
And were you specifically interested in looking for shotgun shells?
Yes.
About how long were you at the crime scene that day?
Approximately 8 or 9 hours.
During that 8 or 9 hour period, did you ever leave the crime scene and go somewhere else and then come back? Or were you there continuously?
From the immediate crime scene area, which was the family room, I had left, but I never left the
The house?
property at 722.
When you got to the scene at approximately 1 a.m., did you see either of the two defendants there at that time?
No, I did not.
When is the first time that you saw them that day?
First time that I had seen them was at approximately 5:30 in the morning on the 21st.
And where were you physically located when you first saw them?
I was in the family room at the time.
Okay, and-
When I saw them, they were I'm not sure whether they were at the front of the house or at the rear of the house. A officer had come to tell me that they were there, and I went out to speak to them.
Okay, and at this time, you don't recall if it was the front or the back?
I don't know.
Okay, at that time, did you let them into the house?
No, I did not,
Why not?
because we were still conducting an investigation.
Do you recall about what time the coroner's representative showed up?
It was at 4:45 in the morning of the 21st.
All right, and do you know at what time that he finished with his work and left?
At approximately 6:45 the same morning.
Now, when you spoke, or when you first saw the defendants at about 5:30 a.m., did you send them away?
Yes,
Okay, when's the next time you saw them?
at 8:30 in the morning that same day.
And were you, I take it you were still at the home, is that correct?
That's correct.
And where were they when you saw them at 8:30?
They had come to the house, and again, I'm not sure whether they came to the front or the rear of the house.
And did you have any conversation with them?
Yes,
Okay, now when you had this conversation with them, were they together?
yes, they were.
Okay. By the way, did you look at their clothes? Did you look at their clothes that day, that early morning?
Cursory, but not. I didn't inspect them. No,
Okay. Did you see any blood on them?
I did not. No.
And when they came back at 8:30 in the morning, did they ask you if they could have entry to the house?
Yes.
And what did you tell them?
At that point, we allowed access to the house.
Okay. Did you allow access into all portions of the house?
We were still working in the family room, and the doors were closed, and I told them that they could have access to the entire house when we were done, but I cautioned them about the family room.
Did they ask you if they could get something from the house?
Yes,
Okay. And did they tell you from where they wanted to get this thing or things?
yes.
Okay. What did they say?
I'm going to check, Your Honor. Please send me.
Try to be more specific.
Okay. Do you recall which of the two made the request?
I don't know.
All right. Were they together when the request was made?
Yes,
Okay. And when the request was made, did either of the two brothers indicate that they did not want to go along with the request?
Objection, Your Honor. That's leading.
Overruled. You understand the question?
That's leading.
yes,
Okay. Is that yes, you understand the question, or yes to the question?
yes, I understand the question.
Okay. Do you want me to say it again?
Please,
Okay. One of the two made a request of you, and you don't recall which. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And did the other one disavow or in any way try to negate the request of the other brother?
I'm going to object again, Your Honor.
That's leading.
Yeah.
Overruled.
No, he did not object to the
What
question.
was
And
the
what was the
leading
question
objection?
asked?
The question was to retrieve items from within the house, and then it was narrowed down that the items to be retrieved were in the family room.
Okay. And were you made aware of what items were requested?
Yes.
What?
Can I clarify that at the time that request was made, it was not at 8:30, it was at 5:30 in the morning?
All right. And at
Objection,
5:30 in the morning when the
non-response.
request was made,
Yeah.
what was the request?
The request was to pick up some items. Those items in particular were tennis equipment.
When you were inside of the crime scene, did you in fact see some sort of tennis equipment?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, may I have a moment, please?
Yes.
So 5:30 a.m. They requested to pick up tennis equipment. Interesting.
Your Honor, I can't find what I need right now. I'll continue on.
All right.
Now, at 5:30 in the morning, when it was requested of you that tennis rackets be retrieved, or tennis equipment be retrieved from the family room, what did you say?
Because it was in the family room, didn't want to relinquish anything that was in there because the investigation had not been complete yet.
Sometime after the 21st of August, did you go to the Century City 14 Theater to recover some records?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have here 2 sets of 2 exhibits. I'd like to mark them as people's next in order, please.
18.
Should I mark all of them as 18? They're related. 18, I'll do 18A and B.
All right.
I wonder if the prosecution is saying that because it sounds like they're just sort of like moving on with life, going to practice tennis, like.
No, someone in the chat said that we're gonna figure out why they went back to the house later on.
Ah, okay.
And then 18B. Are these blow-ups of the records that you retrieved sometime after the 21st of August?
Yes.
Those
It's
are
a very
blow-ups?
remarkable white sheet of paper.
Has a handwritten notation on the
Oh,
left side
no,
of
there's
it,
stuff on it.
Yeah.
Which indicates, and part of it's cut off, but.
Very
could you
small
tell us
blow-ups,
what
if you
that
ask me.
indication is under the movie License to Kill?
The notation is, I believe the beginning of the numbers was 175 or 17 is missing, and then there's 5, and then there's a 30 below it with a line, and obviously a subtraction is 145.
And what are the words?
The words is sold out.
And 18B, would you please refer to that, which is a blow-up as well for the movie Batman. And you see some writing off to the left?
Yes,
And is that writing not sold out?
that's correct.
Okay. And you retrieved these. Do you
Ah,
remember
their
how long
alibi.
after the 20th it was that you retrieved these?
I don't specifically remember the date.
Specifically.
It was
He did it
within
again.
2 weeks after the 21st.
This is how this guy says specifically.
From the
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Holy Pacifically, Batman.
Did you also at some point retrieve some business records from U.S. Sprint?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have here one document 2 times. I'd like to mark this as People's 19, please.
Yes.
Detective Zoeller, I'd like to ask you if you recognize the portion in the middle of the page of this exhibit.
Yes, I do.
Now, at some time did you determine that there were phone booths at the Santa Monica Civic Center?
Yes.
And did you obtain records relating to phone calls utilizing that phone booth?
Yes.
And the exhibit 19, which you have in front of you, is this a copy of some records that you retrieved regarding 2 phone calls made from the Santa Monica Civic?
Yes.
At this time, counsel, will you stipulate that exhibit 19 contains phone records of 2 phone calls from phone number area code 213-394-9911, that phone number is for a phone booth at the Santa Monica Civic, that these phone records reflect charges made on a U.S. Sprint card belonging to Jose Menendez.
So stipulated. So stipulated.
Thank you.
Technology, man.
I marked another exhibit, but I haven't had you open it. It's exhibit number 17. Could you open this
More
exhibit and
envelopes.
describe for the record what you're doing, please?
It's an envelope which has the Los Angeles County seal on it, which I am tearing the seal. And opening it are 3 smaller envelopes that are also sealed.
And these appear to also contain
shotgun wad, shotgun pellets, and shotgun pellets and wad. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, were these retrieved from the coroner's office?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so all of the items contained in People 17 were retrieved by you, actually retrieved by someone else and given to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Adam, I'll keep on.
Yes.
All right. So, interesting. He definitely says specifically instead of specifically.
That's
So, yeah. I mean, some people do. Hey, so interesting that they've started to kind of set up. It's not clear, unless you kind of know a little bit of the backstory, what the Batman schedule is all about, or what the 2 phone calls from a phone booth in Santa Monica on a Sprint card owned by Jose Menendez is all about. But it seems like they're going to be setting that up at some point. I feel like this detective could be someone who could explain that. So
there's got to be more to the story. So it looks like they're getting documents in, they're getting background stuff in because they don't want to break up any longer narratives. Sometimes you do that. You try to front load the boring stuff or back load the boring stuff to make sure that when the detective is telling their story, they're not being interrupted by, let's go through these documents.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, that was the end of the direct testimony. And so it would have been nice to have some kind of an explanation about why are we suddenly talking about the movie Batman? What's up with this phone booth? If they can give that explanation, which it seems like if he can admit those documents, he probably has enough personal knowledge to explain something about the context for it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe on redirect, maybe with the next witness, I'm not sure. But let's get some sassy cross-examination.
Darth Sarah. I bet he has Paschetti for dinner too.
Oh man, I love it. I love Paschetti. Paschetti is delicious, and I will never knock Paschetti. All right.
The identification unit of the Beverly Hills Police Department were called to this scene to assist in the gathering of evidence.
3.
And did you visualize, look at, observe every piece of evidence at the site before it was gathered?
With the exception of the shotgun pellets, I would say that I did.
And did you cause a series of photographs to be taken of each item of evidence before it was gathered?
Yes.
And in those photographs, back up a minute, did you ascribe a number to each item of evidence that was photographed?
I didn't, but that's customary for the Identification Bureau to do that.
And was a series of photographs generated where the photos depict a number label next to an item of evidence?
Yes.
Now, did you personally look for items of ballistics evidence apart from expended shotgun shells?
I don't understand.
You testified on direct that you personally looked to see if there were any expended shotgun shell casings.
Yes.
You did that yourself?
In conjunction with Identification Bureau, yes.
Okay, they were there when you did that.
We all did it together.
And were the decedents still there when you did that?
Yes.
Then I take it you didn't move them or the couch cushions at that point to look for any evidence?
That's correct.
After the decedents were removed, did you personally participate in moving any of the furniture, lifting up any cushions, anything like that?
I was there when the Identification Bureau took the cushions off, moved the couches, and looked for items, additional items.
Now, did the Beverly Hills Police Department at any time take custody of any of the furniture in that room?
No, we did not.
Do you know whether or not the identification unit people cut open the couch or the couch cushions to see if there were pellets in those?
I don't think they did, no.
Were you aware at any subsequent time of any persons who had access to the location coming to the Beverly Hills Police Department with additional pellets that they had found?
Nobody came to the Beverly Hills Police Department.
Excuse me. Now, you said you did not instruct them to remove any pellets from the walls.
That's correct.
Did you observe any pellets in the walls?
None in the wall, but I did observe pellets in the louvered windows on the south wall.
Did you observe pellets or did you observe the holes made by pellets?
Both.
And did you collect the pellets that you observed?
We didn't dig them out, but those that were on the floor we did collect, yes.
Did you take photographs of the ones that you didn't dig out?
There are photographs of the damage to the louvered windows.
Yes. Do those photos depict the pellets that you saw somehow embedded in the louvers?
I don't think the photos specifically were to show the pellets. So if the photos show the pellets, it just happened that they did.
Did you write any kind of report that documented how many pellets, for example, you observed that were embedded in the louvers?
No.
Let me just see if we have some clarification. This particular room had a wall that had a series of French doors on it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And covering the French doors were a form of shutter, these louvers that you're talking about.
That's correct.
And they were made of wood.
Yes.
And you observed, did you not, when you got to the scene, that some of the slats of these shutters were damaged or broken?
Yes.
And did you also observe the glass of the French doors that was behind these shutters to see if any of the panes of glass were damaged?
Yes.
And were they?
Yes, they were.
And did you therefore check outside those doors for ballistic evidence?
Yes.
And was any ballistic evidence gathered from outside the French doors?
Only photographs.
And what do the photographs depict?
The pellet holes into a tree against the south border fence at the border of the property.
Am I correct in stating that if you go outside those French doors, directly across from those French doors in a southerly direction is a large tree?
Correct.
And you saw some evidence of things that had struck the trunk of the tree?
Correct.
And you assumed, did you not, that those were pellets?
Yes.
Were any of those dug out?
No.
And beyond that tree is the south fence that separated this property from 720 Elm Drive, the next house south?
Correct.
Did you observe, strike that, there is outside these French doors a patio type area, is that right?
That's correct.
And did you examine that area visually?
Yes.
Did you examine it in daylight?
Yes.
And did you find any ballistics evidence such as waddings or plastic parts in that area?
No.
Now, Mrs. Blazanich earlier showed you what was originally your item 11. Do you think you could fish that out of 16? It's 16C.
Perhaps you can shark it out.
Can I approach you on it?
Yes.
I have 16C.
Okay. Did you seal that up after you had opened it before?
I think that it was stapled shut by the district attorney.
Okay, why don't you open that one up?
It's the DA's fault.
Okay, I took the staple out and I'm removing the content, which is a plastic, clear plastic bag with item 11 written on it.
Now, you've referred to that particular item as a wad, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it also called a shot cup?
Yes.
And do you know what kind of shotgun ammunition is ordinarily contained in a shot cup such as that?
Yes.
And what kind is it?
Hanging back
Birdshot.
again.
Birdshot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which are very tiny fellows.
Little BBs, correct.
Now, you had described for Mrs. Basanich the fact that you had also found some paper wadding. Is that right?
That's correct.
Do you recall if, let's just take a look at that. I believe 16B should contain a part, at least a part of paper wadding.
Again, it's been resealed. Do you want me to reopen it?
Why not?
Okay.
Yes, I think.
I'm going to return item 11 or 16C back to its envelope.
Don't see it.
Okay. And I'm taking the staple out of 16B and removing the items within it that are
FYI, he's narrating this for the record.
Take a look at 21A.
Yes.
Okay, I have 21A, and it's a clear plastic envelope with a paper wadding
Can I see that for a moment?
or wad.
Okay, now that appears to be a piece. Let's see if we can knock it down. Okay, this little disc-like object is a segment, is it not, of a paper spacer, as you've described it?
Correct.
Okay. Now, there was a third kind of spacer or wadding that was located at the scene, is that right? Or are these the only two things, the shot cup and this kind of wad with which you're familiar?
The third type is just the plastic over powder spacer.
Okay, it doesn't look like
Or
what you're
wadding.
holding in your hand, though, which is,
No, this is actually 3 pieces in one, which, okay.
why don't we see if we can find, let's see if Mrs. Basanich cross-labeled any of the small plastic over powder wads.
She did not.
She did not.
No.
Then why don't we look at 16, and let me see if I can find that.
Item 5.
Try 5A.
Okay, I have 5 envelope containing 5A and B.
Has this has not been submarked yet?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, perhaps this one should then be marked 16G. Is that right?
Yes.
All right.
Original item number 5A and B.
Wait, is
What
this
happens,
comment
ladies
true?
and gentlemen,
Was
is when the
Leslie
police
411?
seize things or pick up things at a crime scene, they mark them with their own designations numerically. And then when they come into the courtroom, we have all other exhibits that all get mixed together. So we have to give them different numbering so that there is some confusion. But ultimately, the exhibit numbers that we give them are the numbers that you will use to refer to them during the course of the trial. All right, you may proceed.
You wish me to open it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I am taking the staple out of the top and opening it. I'm removing 2 plastic bags. B is a portion of the plastic, white plastic bracelet. 5A is the piece of plastic wad.
Okay, this is what we've talked, what you've referred to before as an over powder wad, and it's a disc of plastic, is it not?
Yes.
Okay, it's not a big column like item 11.
Correct.
Let's compare. Well, if the juries can see this, there's a difference between these. Probably too far away. Okay, let's.
Oh no. Oh no. Get them back in the proper bag.
11 out. That goes there. This is 11, which goes.
Yeah, especially because we're gonna have to try this case again.
Yeah. Well, they don't know that yet,
I know.
thankfully.
For the record, may I staple these closed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Detective Zoeller, did you ever count up how many of those plastic over powder wads, the disc-like ones that we just looked at, were collected in conjunction with this case, both from the scene and from the coroner's office?
No.
Now, you collected a series of, or your identification unit personnel collected pellets from the scene, correct?
That's correct.
Were they all the same size or were they different sizes?
My recollection is they were all the same size, although I know there was birdshot there, but I'm not sure whether we collected any of the birdshot.
Would you have just left it if it had been seen?
No.
Okay. So to the best of your knowledge, all that was seen in the family room and proximity to it were non-birdshot pellets.
Correct.
Okay. And were those non-birdshot pellets larger pellets than birdshot?
Yes.
And were they all the ones that, to your knowledge, were all the larger pellets that you or other personnel from the Beverly Hills Police Department observed at that scene and in proximity picked up, other than the ones that we've talked about that weren't dug out of things, were every other one that was seen picked up and collected?
I don't think so, no.
And why don't you think so?
Because I remember a discussion between the Identification Bureau and my partner and I of whether we wanted him to pick up every pellet that was there, as far as going into and under the couch and in the blood, and it was decided no.
So you purposely decided to leave certain pellets there?
Correct.
Do you know how many you left?
No, I do not.
Did anybody bother counting?
No.
Now, is it your understanding, Detective Zoeller, that shotgun ammunition, if you go to buy, say, a box of ammunition from a particular manufacturer, and you're buying a specific size ammunition, shouldn't every shotgun shell in that box contain the same number of pellets?
No.
No?
No.
You mean, well, let me give you a clearer hypothetical. Let's say you went out to buy double-aught buckshot, okay?
Yes.
You understand that to be the largest
Yes.
buckshot made, and therefore the largest pellet-type shotgun ammunition.
Correct.
And let's say you went to buy Remington double-aught buck.
Your Honor, objection to the question goes beyond his expertise, and also, we have a witness on this subject.
Well, I'll sustain it on the grounds it's beyond the witness's expertise.
Yeah, that does sound about right.
Were you
He made
interested
the
at all
affirmative
as the
statement, though.
investigating officer on this case
He said
in
no.
trying to determine how many rounds were fired at that scene?
Yes.
Did you, you being the Beverly Hills Police Department and within your knowledge, receive shotgun pellets from the coroner's office?
Yes.
And did you ever compare the pellets you received from the coroner's office with the description of the coroner in his autopsy reports of how many pellets he found?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yes, it's true, is it not, that in the coroner's report he makes reference in various places to how many pellets he obtained or found in the decedents?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you recall being present at the autopsy?
Yes.
You recall the coroner coming upon pellets in various parts of the anatomy of each of the decedents?
Yes.
You recall him removing them?
Yes.
Do you recall him giving them to you?
He didn't give them to me. It was given to his evidence person, who in turn gave it to me.
All right. And have you ever been made aware, or has it ever been brought to your attention, that the number of pellets the coroner found are not the same number of pellets the coroner turned over to you?
No.
All right.
Now that part is kind of the only part about it. Like, but again, the chat is very appropriately identifying why are we really talking about this? Wasn't there a defense that the homicide was justifiable? And I don't really know at this stage. Are they banking on their alibi defense or?
Well, I think that so what I understand their alibi was initially what they told the police was that they went to go see Batman, but that they couldn't, and because it was sold out. So showing the schedule of Batman and showing that it wasn't in fact sold out calls into question, so they're gonna bring in some inconsistencies in what the Sons have said to obviously call into question the everything else that they're saying, right? So show them dishonest in one area, they might be dishonest in other areas. So there's that. So I think that on that sort of same level, what the defense is probably trying to do is just to call into question like the police investigation here, all of the stuff that they did. They didn't really investigate that properly. It could also be that maybe there's a possibility that they will make an argument that that the admission that they made was improper or something, because it's like well, I don't know because
it feels
in the
like they're throwing
openings,
darts at the wall.
yeah, because I was just gonna say in the openings they did say, the defense attorneys, I think both said it's not disputed who killed the parents, right? So I don't know. A lot of this feels like it's not exactly relevant because of that. So I don't know. But well, we've got some more cross-examination, so maybe more will clear up soon.
Hopefully.
Earlier that you spent the 9 hours or so at the location, not just in the actual scene of the shooting, the family room, but on the premises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you personally inspect the other rooms, walk through them and look around?
Yes.
And in fact, you had your identification division or your photographic unit, I'm not sure which it would be, take pictures of every room of the house.
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach as well, please?
Showing you this photograph, Exhibit 13, that does appear to be one of the crime scene photographs that were taken by the Beverly Hills Police Department pursuant to this investigation, does it not?
Correct.
And do you know what room that is?
It was a room in the northwest portion of the house. I don't recall whether there was a room beyond that as a porch room, whether this is the one to the extreme west portion, but it was in the northwest portion of the house.
Okay, the west portion of the house faces the street, basically. This house faces west, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The north portion of the house is one side, the south portion the other side, and the
east being the rear.
The east is the rear, correct? So that the tennis court, the swimming pool are east of the house.
Correct.
All right. Now, this bedroom, you seem to recollect that might be one of the bedrooms that overlooks the front street, Elm Drive.
Correct.
Okay. Do you notice the dark-colored, appear to be objects on the rug next to the bed?
Yes.
Did you see those objects when you went to the scene that first day?
Yes.
And are those objects what appear to be animal stool?
Yes.
Now, did you observe animal stool or fecal material in any other area of the house?
Not in the house, no.
Did you examine the breakfast room area of the house?
Yes.
I dare say, did you see if there was any on the bed?
Are you aware of?
I was thinking the same thing.
Nestie's report of his observations?
I received it. I don't recall at this particular moment.
Do you recall seeing any fecal material, animal fecal material in the breakfast room of the house?
I don't recall, no.
Did you cause any diagrams to be drawn of the actual scene, the family room?
Yes.
Were those diagrams drawn to scale?
I know measurements were taken at the time. I don't recall whether the diagrams were to scale. Show me the diagram, I could tell you.
I think I have a clean copy. Got one? Like large imported size? Well. Let's do this. Do you want to mark this, Mrs. Bazan? Yes, please. This is a very large diagram. I'll put on the back exhibit 20. First of all, ignoring the little pen mark on this, let me show you this small one, which I won't mark, and just ask you if that was the size diagram that was drawn by members of your department the first day of the investigation.
Yes.
Okay, now this 20, this is a large economy size of that, is it not?
Correct.
Okay, and and this is a diagram of the actual family room.
That's correct.
Now, do you know if this is the diagram I'm talking about? Is it to scale?
It does not appear to be to scale.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can see something, so let's. You want to discuss something?
Do you know whether the Beverly Hills Police Department ever prepared a scale diagram of that room?
I don't believe they did, no.
Did the Beverly Hills Police Department prepare the floor plan of the house that has been an exhibit here?
Yes.
And is that to scale?
Yes, it is.
But it does not contain any furniture locations, is that right?
That's correct.
Detective Zoeller, you said one of your jobs that night was to direct the gathering of evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was it someone else's job to interpret the crime scene?
As far as what?
Well, you were in court when the criminalist was here a couple of witnesses ago.
Yes.
And he said that part of his job is to gather evidence and to interpret it.
Yes.
Was there anybody whose job at the crime scene that night was to perform the role of a criminalist who would come in and look at the crime scene and try and reconstruct what had happened in that room?
No.
And is that because your department doesn't have a criminalist or for some other reason?
Because we don't have a criminalist.
How many homicides roughly does the Beverly Hills Police Department handle on a yearly basis?
Approximately 2 a year.
And so you don't have a criminalist who's on call from another department either, as the sheriff officer who testified here before suggested?
I learned subsequent to this investigation that we can call the sheriff's department criminalist to come out.
And is it true to say that, at least in your department, for whatever reason, part of the function of interpreting the crime scene falls on you as the investigating officer?
That's correct.
Is it also fair to say that when you arrived at this crime scene at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, that you did your best to make an examination of not only the immediate scene where you saw the decedents, but also the entire house?
Yes, plus we try to document it with photographs and videotape.
And it's one of the reasons you do that so that you can maybe have someone else take a look at the photographs or the videotape later on to maybe offer their expertise.
Correct.
In terms of your expertise in interpreting crime scenes, did it at some point in your investigation that morning become apparent to you that this was not a case of someone breaking into a stranger breaking into somebody's house and killing someone in the course of a robbery or a burglary?
Correct.
That was apparent to you?
I did not observe a break-in. It was my guess at the time that whomever killed Jose and Mary Menendez had been let in by them.
And you say it's a guess. It wasn't just a guess, was it? You actually took a look around to see if there were any signs of forced entry?
Correct.
You took a look to see if there was any signs of ransacking in the house?
Yes.
And based on the absence of forced entry and the absence of ransacking, you deduced, based on your experience, that this was not a crime scene that involved somebody breaking into the house and killing someone inside to get some money, for instance.
Correct.
And isn't it also true that based on your experience and looking at this crime scene that you very quickly came to the conclusion that one possible situation that you were dealing with here was a domestic killing? That is, someone in the family may have killed Mr. and Mrs. Menendez.
I don't think that evening that crossed my mind.
Well, when did it first cross your mind?
Just later in the investigation. I can't give you an exact date when.
Is it true to say that, at least as far as your investigation was concerned, that on that first night and in the course of your preliminary investigation, that the Menendez brothers were not eliminated as suspects?
That's correct.
In other words, they were possible suspects based on your observations of that crime scene, correct?
Correct. They had not been eliminated.
And it was based not only on your observation of the crime scene, but based on your perception that residential homicides are sometimes affiliated with family members. Isn't that true?
Yes.
That was one thing you were thinking about from the very beginning of the investigation. Isn't that right?
Not necessarily family members, but somebody that the family knew.
As well as family members, correct?
Correct.
And so the perception was that they, as family members, may have committed this homicide during the initial stages of your investigation.
Still unclear what you mean by the initial stages and who the they is.
Let me rephrase it, Ryan.
They are.
During the period of time after you arrived at the scene at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, and I believe you said you were still there the next morning when the Menendez brothers arrived at approximately 5 a.m.
That's correct.
During that window or that period of time from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. on August 21st, 1989, you began to form these impressions that we're talking about. Isn't that true?
I don't think that early on, no.
Well, do you remember testifying at the grand jury proceeding in this case?
Yes.
And do you remember being asked back in December of 1992 this question at page 328 of the transcript? Question, when during the course of the investigation...
I'm sorry, no, could you just wait a second?
Sure. Remember being asked this question by Ms. Bazanich? Question, when during the course of the investigation did the two Menendez brothers become suspects? That is, in your mind. And your answer, well, at the beginning of this investigation, I think everybody is a suspect connected to the family. Do you remember giving that testimony?
Yes.
And is that still accurate testimony at this point?
Yes.
So at the beginning of this investigation, in your mind, you thought everybody is a suspect connected to the family.
Yes.
And in other words, they weren't eliminated as suspects at that point, correct?
Exactly. That's correct.
Decent impeachment. And so the question that follows from that is, well, why didn't...
Now, you said also that
why didn't
they
you
came
dig
back,
a little deeper into
they
them?
being the Menendez brothers came back to the house at about 5 a.m., is that correct?
About 5:30, correct.
Where had they been in the meantime, if you know?
I knew that they were at the police station being interviewed, and I don't know what time they had left there.
And how is it that they arrived back there? Did they drive up in a car? Did they walk up, if you remember?
I don't know. I was inside when they arrived.
And when you first saw them, you had a conversation with them, correct?
Correct.
And wasn't the conversation that they said they wanted to pick up some items in the house?
Yes.
And did they mention specific items that they wanted to pick up?
I asked what items, and they told me what specific items.
And was the only thing they mentioned tennis equipment, or did they mention a number of items?
They mentioned a number of items.
And do you remember what else they mentioned that they wanted to pick up?
The only thing that I remember in addition is clothing.
And was it your understanding, or did you convey to them that they weren't going to be able to stay overnight in the house?
Which night are you referring to? This is already 5:30 in the morning.
5 in the morning. So when they came at 5 in the morning, did you make clear to them that they weren't going to be able to stay overnight the following night?
No, I did not.
Was it your impression, based on talking to them, that they were gathering up things to go somewhere else, to stay somewhere else?
I don't recall having an impression what they were going to do that night.
And did you actually go with them inside the house to pick up these items?
At 5:30, no.
At 8:30, did you go inside the house with them when they came back?
Shortly after 8:30 or at 8:30, we, the investigators, relinquished the house to them. So they had the run of the house. They could do what they wanted.
My question is, did you see what they went in and took out of the house
No,
yourself?
no.
Can I have 1 minute now?
Yes.
Thank you.
That seems like a pretty big oversight. Like you're in charge of controlling the crime scene.
Yeah.
You haven't turned it over yet, and you let them go into the house. But I don't know how this benefits the defense. Like,
I mean, other than to say that they were making like gaps
Were
in
there
their
cars
investigation as to
located on
them,
the property
maybe they were
when
making
the
gaps
brothers came
elsewhere as
back at
well.
8:30?
Yes.
Were they allowed to go inside the cars or to take anything from the cars?
When I arrived, I instructed the patrol officers who were securing the perimeter not to allow anybody to go into the vehicles.
So they never were allowed to take anything out of the car, is that correct?
That's what my instructions were. I found out later that they had come back and gone through the Ford Escort, which was parked on the street. And that was only because there was a change of shift, and the officers on the day watch that came were unaware of my request to the morning watch.
Right. Now, at some point in the course of your investigation, you personally sat down and wrote a very detailed police report concerning your observations of the crime scene that night and several other items in the investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in that police report, did you put anything in your report about speaking with the Menendez brothers at 5 a.m. that morning?
No.
Did you put anything in that police report about speaking with the Menendez brothers at 8:30 that morning?
No.
And did you write any other police reports in which you documented those two conversations?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
that's
You would
pretty
write-
bad.
Right, but I think
That's
we-
really bad.
So perhaps we could do that while we're taking the action break.
All right, we'll take a recess, ladies and gentlemen, until 3:30. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any opinions about it. And we'll resume at 3:30. Each jury, if you would return to your respective jury room at 3:30.
I always love the don't form any opinions.
Yeah, I mean they're forming the opinions. It's a fluid process. It's the fact that the investigator didn't document two separate conversations with individuals that would have an intimate knowledge of the house, of the family life, and that were potential suspects at that point in time. The fact that he wouldn't document those conversations at any point in the investigation is pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, especially because it's like he says that they didn't rule them out, right? I mean, and he said in a previous hearing, like, they were still suspects early on. We suspected them early on. So if that's the case, then why didn't you dig into them? Why didn't you ask them, more detailed questions, get all of that on paper,
or escort
document
them
everything?
Escort them in the house. Like 1 a.m. is when he gets to the scene. The brothers show up at 5:30 a.m. Yes, he's tired. That's his job. And then he says that he lets them go into the house unescorted, unobserved, to go and retrieve items. That's just bad work. I mean, that's...
Yeah. There are too many variables for things that can happen in that amount of time. I wonder if it was just because, like, was there a certain sense of deference because they were incredibly wealthy?
I don't know. I also have zero idea how this benefits the defense, like why the defense is bringing this up. Because it's bad investigation, but didn't you just suggest that your clients had access to the house and might have taken things out of the house? Like,
yeah. Unless there's another point in time where there's another question that comes up as to, like, someone else may have done something, or I don't know.
well, the chat is pointing out that he was very non-Pacific at the time when he was
definitely non-Pacific. Oh man. All right.
Alita, I've got to jump off. I've got calls this afternoon.
Yeah. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Thank you for having me.
Very close.
Yeah, I don't like that one. That's really close.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
I didn't mean that. Yeah.
I'm going to keep it on in the background while I do some work.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good rest of your work day. This has been fascinating, right?
This one. Yeah. Now it's getting interesting too, which sucks. Like, why is it getting interesting now? All right. To the chat. Thank you guys. Thank you, Alita. Thank you, chat. Thank you, mods. It was great being around.
Thanks for joining, Rob. All righty. See ya. All right. Let's continue on. We've got some more testimony to go through. And then we'll see where we land for next week. Okay.
Counsel, you had some matter you wanted to discuss?
Yes, Your Honor. Now that Ms. Abramson has approached the subject of the collection of the evidence and notations, I want to show the photographs that I've just given to the court, to the jury, and the yellow tab ones are the ones the defense objects to. So,
All right, for the record, you gave me a group of photographs you want me to look at. Is that right?
please, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, I'll take a recess and look at the photographs and then resume. Something that council might want to consider when we put up photographs and diagrams on this board here, it's a good distance from the jury and the audience, and how you might want to deal with that so that the jury and the audience can see them at least as well as the people in the jury box. And obviously some of the people sitting in the jury box are a good distance away as well. If you have any suggestions, I'll consider it this afternoon or whenever we get around to a further discussion of that, so that the jurors can all see basically the same thing.
I suppose we could walk down there and just show.
I'm not going to go through a display of counsel parading up and down, showing things to the jury, but if there is a way of showing it to them in a fashion that would not involve counsel, but would just be a fixed display of some sort, perhaps we can discuss that.
Maybe if I could get an easel that we could put maybe here in front of me.
Well, let's first, you just think about it, and if you have any resources, we'll certainly consider it. All right.
What time do we come back, Your Honor?
3:30. Hearing of the
Juries, all participants are present, and the court has reviewed the photographs in question. What is it that you wanted to say about them?
Your Honor, I want to have Detective Zoeller identify that there was reference made during cross-examination about the collection of evidence and the numbering of the evidence. And in spite of the fact that in some of the photographs there is blood seen, I think that that's the way the crime scene looked, and that under the cases that I cited in my motion, I think that they're useful.
What is the defense position?
Your Honor, the tabbed photographs, we believe, are not probative in that they really don't show anything. There are a couple of them in there, I don't have them in front of me, where all you see is blood and there doesn't appear to be any physical evidence that's apparent in the photographs. The photographs that do contain some physical evidence that we have tabbed also contain what we believe to be unnecessarily gory depictions. And I think that the court has the authority to rule that the unnecessarily gory things like the bloody pieces of the body should not be brought before the jury, unless there's a compelling reason why they need that particular exhibit. And I don't think the prosecution has shown compelling reason why those particular exhibits are needed.
Well, each of the photographs that have been tabbed here as items that counsel indicated were subject to objection. I've looked at them, and as occurred yesterday, I did look at all of the crime scene photographs, not only yesterday, but I had previously observed the crime scene photographs that had been presented to the grand jury that had been the subject of a portion of the motion to dismiss pursuant to section 995, and I reviewed all of those exhibits, and each of these exhibits that have been tabbed do have in them numerical designations indicating to me that they all contain items that were seized at the crime scene. So that contradicts your statement, Ms. Morrissey, that they don't depict items that were recovered at the crime scene. The purpose of these little tags with numbers on them would indicate that they do have evidentiary value and were things that were ultimately recovered.
Your Honor, there was one in particular that I don't have it in front of me that I was referring to. But just the fact that they depict numbers, which is the numbers that the police put there before the photograph, I don't think necessarily makes them admissible. They may contain things that have not been referred to in testimony today. I think this court still has to consider the 352 aspect and the gory aspects of the photographs before allowing them to the jury.
Well, anybody else wish to be heard?
We just join in the objection.
And what is it that the people intend to prove by these photographs other than they show locations where exhibits were recovered?
To show the collection of the evidence, Your Honor, I believe that it's going to be some insinuation or some questioning Ms. Abramson. I think that it may be argued later that the police were sloppy or inept in their keeping of the records. And I think
That does seem to be the insinuation.
In addition, we are going to have Mr. Linhart from the Sheriff's Department come in to talk about the crime scene and what can be deduced from it. And I need Detective Zoeller to lay the foundation for these photographs, because Mr. Linhart was not present. And so I believe Mr. Bird asked Detective Zoeller if criminals interpret the crime scene from the photographs, and here are the photographs that Mr. Linhart will use in part to reconstruct the scene.
Your Honor, let me just say that concerning the rest to my questioning, nothing in that photograph is going to overcome the fact that Detective Zoeller testified they saw pellets and they left them there. And that isn't going to help. Or saw them and didn't remove them. And that's really all that.
Okay, but the prosecution can still present evidence to try to make that argument, though.
Complete, and those pictures don't change that.
Furthermore, Your Honor, as to the criminalist, it's my understanding based on the report that he looked at one photograph or one scene which depicts the position of blood stains or blood splatters near Jose Menendez. And I'm not sure there's sufficient foundation at this point to say that that whole stack of photographs is relevant to that person's testimony. I don't think there's been showing to that effect.
Your Honor, the criminalist was provided with in excess of 100 photographs.
Well, he may have been provided with them, but the question is what his opinion is based on.
Well, ultimately, it seems that most of the crime scene photographs will
come in one way or another. Counsel, in their opening statements, the defense counsel have indicated that all of the crime scene photographs were shown to certain experts for the defense, and those photographs played a role in the expert opinions about which the defense spoke yesterday, and somehow these crime scene photographs were part of the foundation for certain opinions formed by these experts. So it seems just on that theory alone, most of these photographs will be admissible.
Well, I think your reasoning is too broad a generality, Your Honor. Our expert will indicate which photos have any relevance. In fact, it's his position that most of them do not because they're shot so badly.
Well, regardless of the quality of the photographs, it seemed to me that from what you said, the way the shots were fired and how they were fired and the nature of the carnage that resulted is all indicative of some opinion formed by the expert that the defense will be relying upon. And if that is so, and if he looked at these photographs and or she, whoever it is, and used them as a basis of an opinion, then ultimately it seems to me that they would be admissible. Now, whether or not they're admissible at this stage is something else. Also, there is further descriptive evidence that will be introduced, at least as far as one defendant, in regards to how the shootings occurred and the nature of the physical reaction of the decedents and the body material that was blown about the room, things of that nature, which are depicted in these photographs and would also potentially be admissible and to document what actually happened at the crime scene and to corroborate the testimony of a witness who apparently is going to be called to relate admissions made by one defendant to him. So on that theory, I could see where a lot of these photographs could very well be admissible. And further, just in reviewing the crime scene itself, many photographs are admissible to show how the scene appeared and what happened at the scene. And although the defense seems to want to insulate the jury from seeing the crime scene as it appeared at the time the police arrived, many of these things will be received by the jury. It's just the nature of this type of case where when this event or an event such as this happens, it leaves certain evidence behind that the trier of fact must see.
Well, Your Honor, first of all, as far as the court's comment that we're trying to insulate the jury from seeing this, I think what we're trying to do is what is ordinarily done in a case, which is limit the evidence to what is relevant, to what there's going to be testimony about, and to what is necessary. Now, we haven't objected to most of those photographs. I think in that stack there are 4 little tags. And all we're trying to do is to minimize evidence that doesn't have probative value, that is purely inflammatory. But I think the court's remark about the timing of the use of these photographs is cogent, because there's been virtually nothing that's been elicited from Detective Zoeller that requires the marking of those photographs at this time. Now, if there's future testimony by witnesses for either side that is based upon those photographs or any of the crime scene or all of the crime scene photographs, I think that's the appropriate time to mark and exhibit those photographs to the jury so that they have some probative effect rather than just throw them all up there for the cumulative ugliness of them all, unless there's going to be some relevant testimony about it.
All right. Well, obviously that's true. Evidence has to be relevant and probative, and the probative value must outweigh its prejudicial effect before it can be received. And the court, as I say, I have reviewed the photographs here as well as all of the other photographs, and the ones that have been presented to me are not all of the crime scene photographs. There are many that have not been presented to me. However, of those that have been presented to me at this point, certain of them don't seem to have relevance to any offer that is being made by the prosecution, and specifically at this point, and I'm not ruling as to ultimately, depending on the nature of the evidence here,
There are some close-up photographs of the lower portion of the body of Jose Menendez.
Okay, so he might actually
at this
exclude some of
point,
these.
don't seem to have any substantial probative value, and the prejudicial effect could outweigh its probative value as of now.
So he might
Later on,
exclude
when
some of these photos.
forensic evidence is offered, that ruling could easily change. But as to those photographs now, the court would rule that they should not be presented to the jury. So there are 3 photographs in total that would not be.
Does the court have photocopies of it?
I do.
Your Honor, I have a photograph here that I think is an example of something that we are not going to present to the jury.
Yes.
It is particularly gruesome, but for the purposes of making a record, may I submit this to the court and then have it sealed?
Why would you seal it?
Yeah, what's the purpose of that?
If what the prosecution is trying to do is to show how fair they are, I think the easiest thing is to show them to the court. I don't think you have to mark it or seal it.
Well, I'm concerned about the record on appeal.
No. At some point here, what you should do is present me with a complete set of all of the photographs. And that will be the record on appeal that you will have shown me, and you will preserve for appellate purposes all of the photographs that have been reviewed by the court.
Are 3 by 5 sufficient?
Sure.
Okay.
All you're doing is creating a record here, and at this point, I'm not ruling on the inadmissibility of the 3 photographs that I am removing here. They might very well be admissible later in the proceedings. Just as of now, for the purpose that is being offered by the prosecution, they will not be.
All right, could I have those set to the side?
Yes. And counsel for both sides can review those that are remaining so that you know what is being left.
Your Honor, may I, for the record, then, when I speak with Detective Zoeller on this subject, indicate that items 4, 5, 6, 12, and 13 were recovered near the body of Mr. Menendez. Those are the markers that are excluded.
Ask him?
Ask him that. Okay. All right.
So she's going to try to get these admitted by laying some more foundation. But otherwise, the judge has decided that certain images are more prejudicial than they are probative. So in other words, they are relevant technically to the case, but they are way more inflammatory because they are gruesome, they are bloody. And of course, the defense wants to eliminate evidence like that because that's bad for their client, right? The more gruesome these images are, the worse it is for the defendant.
All right, my point is, should I have that witness here first thing? Is that the first thing we're going to pick up?
I don't know if there is other witnesses or evidence that the prosecution intends to offer before then.
Mrs. Position, 1 or 2 first things so I can get the lawyer in and out.
That's fine. If we may have to interrupt someone, but that's all right. That's
Do what?
to put the lawyer on for the floor. In other words, I don't think we're going to finish with Sergeant Edmonds this afternoon.
All right. Well, I would prefer to finish with one witness before we get into the next, however, so I don't want to interrupt.
Then I'll have him come at 10.
All right. All right, anything else now before the jury comes in?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the record will reflect the court has exercised its discretion under section 352 of the evidence code in excluding 3 of the photographs that have been presented by the prosecution.
May I confer the witness while the jury comes in?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So we've got one last commercial break for today that we are working through. So it looks like, like I said before, that the judge is evaluating all of these pieces of evidence before deciding whether to admit them, right? Because they have to be not just relevant, but they have to be more relevant than they are prejudicial. When we're talking about a case like this, we've already seen some images that have been presented to the jury that are particularly gruesome, right? I mean, images of the 2 parents on the couch in various conditions, right? After they've been shot, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore, in these images. And so the defense, of course, wants to try to limit the exposure of those kind of images to the jury because it's not good, right? It's never a good thing for the defense, especially in a case like this where there is some gruesomeness here involved, right? So it looks like the judge has eliminated some of them, but there's a possibility that they could be admitted at a later time. And that's why the prosecution asked if she can go into basically asking some questions that are related to those photos, which would lay a foundation, could make them more relevant than they are prejudicial, can kind of tip that balance back in favor of admitting them, at which time the judge would potentially admit them into evidence. And then, it's back on the prosecution side. They can use the bloody, gory photos because they're back to being particularly relevant. So, okay, with that, let's continue with our last bit of testimony for the day.
And we'll resume with the trial, and we still have Detective Zoeller on the witness stand. You may resume your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have here a series of photographs which I'll be marking sequentially. The first one I'd like to mark is Exhibit 21, please. I have 2 copies. Detective Zoeller, I'm going to give you one and put one on the board. This photograph, Exhibit 21, could you describe briefly what is depicted in the photograph?
Yes, the photographer is standing outside of the family room at 722 North Elm Drive, looking in the easterly direction at the east wall.
And in the photograph, there appears to be some doors. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and were those the double doors leading into the family room?
Yes.
Do you see any tennis equipment in this photograph, Exhibit 21?
Yes.
And could you count for me how many tennis rackets you can see?
In this photo, I see 2 tennis rackets.
Your Honor, I'm going to now mark these all at once. Exhibit 22. Another photograph.
Just mark them without telling us what you're doing, and then after you've done it, you can just give us a summary of what you've done.
Okay.
All right. More marking exhibits, it looks like.
Here, I've marked a series of photographs, exhibits 22 through 36, and of those I have 2, except for I only have one of number 35. No, I have 2, sorry. Detective Zoeller, I'd like you to take a look at these photographs that I just marked, please. And I'd like to ask you to describe what is depicted in these photographs.
In Exhibit 22 is a photograph of the wood floor in the family room, and it has a number 1 designator in the center of the photograph.
And is that one place next to a piece of evidence of significance?
Yes.
Okay, could you describe what is next to it?
I can't tell exactly what it is on this one.
All right.
Do you have the evidence registered?
Okay.
Or one?
Item number 16, which contains the various envelopes, contains numbers on the envelopes referring to item numbers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And those item numbers correspond, do they not, to the item numbers that are contained on these photographs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Without going through these in minute detail, let me just ask you some questions. Number 2 represents the collection of a piece of evidence which is in one of these envelopes, correct?
Correct.
And that is photograph
23.
Photograph number 24 also
delineates the collection of a piece of evidence number 3.
Correct.
Items number 4, 5, 6, 12, and 13. Were those gathered on the sofa next to Mr. Menendez?
That's correct.
And the actual things that were collected, 4, 5, 6, 12, and 13, are in fact contained in one of these smaller envelopes from 16. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now we have photograph number 25, which also has a number on it, number 7. Photograph number 26 has numbers 8 and 9, and so on and so forth through these photographs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, may I place these on the board, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I feel like she needs like a stepping stool to get up to the top. Okay, so that's where pellets were taken from, it looks like.
So I'm going to ask you a specific question about photograph 29. I'll put it on our board in a minute, but you see in this photograph the bodies of the decedents have been removed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the coffee table appears to be at an angle in this photograph. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that coffee table moved during the removal of the bodies?
No, it was not.
Now, as an example of what you were testifying to earlier, photograph number 32, which contains item 18, is that an example of a paper wad that you
Yes.
discussed? Okay. And photograph 33, which contains number 19 in it, is that an example of a plastic over powder wad?
It is.
So each of these markers indicates an item of evidence which was collected and returned to the Beverly Hills Police Department. Is that correct?
That's correct.
This is basically
I
to
have here,
reinforce.
Your
Look at
Honor,
all the evidence that you did get.
3 more.
This was a proper
photographs, double
investigation.
sets. I'd like to mark these as the next 3. That would be, I think, 36, 37, 38.
That's around 37.
Oh, thank you. Referring to photograph 37, I'd like to ask you what is depicted in this photograph.
This is the exterior shot of the French doors on the south wall of the family room. And it depicts the window panes that are blown out.
Now, for purposes of reference, the door appears to have, is that a threshold or is that the top of the door? Just so we know how the photograph is situated. In the photograph, there appears to be a portion of the door that is, the paint, where the paint is scratched off, and then there appears to be either it's a threshold or it's a molding. Do you know?
It appears to be the bottom of the door.
So that would be the threshold that you walk.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Photograph 38 and 39. Could you tell me what these 2 photographs depict, please?
38 is the interior photograph of the French doors, which depicts blood spatter on it, plus the window is blown out, and there's some pellet marks breaking the wooden louvered blinds. And then 39 appears to be the same window pane, but a close-up shot of the same shot.
Right. So these two photographs are actually the same side of the door, is that correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may I have the witness put all this back inside while I continue the question? Detective Zoeller, when you were inside of the home for approximately 9 hours on the 21st of August, did you see any animals inside of the house or on the property?
Yes.
Could you describe how many and what type?
I saw 2 dogs, a smaller, older dog, and then a larger puppy.
Do you have any idea of what breed these dogs were?
I don't recall. I remember the larger one being dark in color.
Now, the photographs which
perhaps a
we've been
Yorkie?
discussing, did you provide copies of
Like a
those
deputy
photographs
heard.
to the defense attorneys in this case?
Yes.
I believe you indicated when Mr. Burt was questioning you that you made some determinations about the crime scene as to whether or not there was a theft involved or a burglary involved. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any idea if the front door was locked or unlocked at the time of the crime?
At what
At the
period
time,
of-
at the time that Mr. and Mrs. Menendez were killed, do you know if the door was locked or unlocked?
No.
Okay. Now, when people talk about signs of forced entry, what do you think of when you look for signs of forced entry?
A kick door, broken locks,
Broken glass near
broken
a door?
glass.
Okay. Did you see any signs of forced entry like that?
No.
But you have no personal knowledge of the state of the front door as to whether or not it was unlocked at the time?
That's correct.
Okay. I have nothing further of this witness at this time.
All
May
right.
recross.
No recross.
All right, thank you. May I step down?
Okay. So that is it for this one. I personally kind of wish that she had put up those photos during the direct testimony. I think Holmes agrees. Right, Holmesy? Because it would have been nice to sort of see this during that testimony earlier, like getting that visual at the same time. But I don't know, maybe others would disagree because it kind of interrupts the flow of the questioning in that earlier stage. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know, man. Let me get some questions here before we head out, because I know that there were some in the chat that I kind of saved as we were watching. So Jan E. Wallace said, Robin Lita, are you glad you didn't practice law in this time because of the lack of technology? Sorry that Rob's not here. But I will say I am very happy about the fact that I have the use of technology today, because being able to put up demonstratives, being able to show evidence is definitely easier in today's day and age, although not every courtroom has the capabilities that we saw in the Deb v. Heard case, for example. Courtrooms are notoriously slow to catch up to technology overall. The legal profession is overall as well, but courtrooms in particular tend to be slow to catch up to technological advancements. For example, there were many courthouses that didn't accept electronic filing until like COVID, because they just, I don't know, they just didn't. So it takes a while for technology to catch up. But I mean, even just like in the everyday legal profession, in those days, they didn't have like online like databases for to do legal research. So nowadays it's a lot easier to find case law that is on point for a particular issue. So yeah, I'm very happy to have the technological advancements that we do have, and I am excited to see what kind of technological advancements we will continue to get in the legal profession as it tries to catch up to the rest of the world, basically. Bazooka Panda says, did they discover 2 different types of wadding at the scene, paper and plastic? If so, how? Did they buy 2 different ammunition brands and load them into the shotgun? These are questions that did come up on cross-examination, and it seemed like the defense really wanted to really wanted to press into those questions a bit more, but the prosecution was able to successfully kind of intervene and say, like, this is outside of the scope of this witness's expertise, so we really shouldn't, like, we shouldn't allow questioning into this. But she did kind of start to pose that question of like, isn't it odd? Like, isn't it typical that, like, when you buy ammunition, it's going to be from the same brand and it's going to be of one particular type? Seemed to suggest that maybe there were multiple actors involved here. I mean, obviously there were in reality, right? The two brothers were involved in this, but it seems like maybe she's suggesting that there are different kinds of people that were involved. I don't know. Again, it was kind of strange to get into that line of questioning overall, because of the fact that it's not disputed that they actually shot their parents, right? It's the main question here is whether or not the killings were justified. So yeah, I don't know, but I definitely understand. It seems unusual. It does seem a little strange. Mantha Johnny also had a question. If an objection is correct to do, but the reason is wrong, does the judge have to overrule, or because they should be objecting, they can decide to sustain it even if the reason is wrong? So I think it kind of depends on how ticky-tacky the judge is feeling, or if they feel like this testimony really shouldn't be coming in because of other reasons. Different judges will have different styles. It's they may sometimes the judge will kind of give a little bit of a hint to whoever is objecting also, to say, like, it's overruled as to speculation, and then, like, suggest, like, there might be some other objection that you can ask for that could be, like, just bring another objection, sometimes, or sometimes, a judge will also kind of intervene and to say, like, yeah, okay, witness, you need to respond to the question that is asked of you, right, without an objection of the objection non-responsive, right? So it kind of depends on the situation, depends on the style of the judge. But yeah. So I think that is about it for that. So, okay. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. I know this was a bit longer than the last couple were, but we definitely want to try to pack in more testimony into these, because I know it's kind of taken a while, right? And we're taking our time through this journey, but it's been very fascinating. So this is getting more and more interesting the more we get into it. And yeah. Mackenzie in the chat, are we pacifically done? We are basically pacifically done for today. I hope you guys did enjoy this. Thank you again to Rob and to Detective Seeds for joining earlier, and for helping to sort of watch this testimony for today and to comment on it. If you guys have not already done so, be sure to check out their channels. They are linked in the description below. Thanks again, of course, to everybody that has been watching, everyone that has liked the video, subscribed to the channel, engaged in the chat. You guys are just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I always love the discussion that we get to see in the chat. We had some really funny discussion today. We got sharks, we got Paisley, we got shoulder pads, all kinds of fun stuff. I always love in these particular streams because we get a lot of like nostalgia talk also about the 90s. And it's like really fun to sort of encounter again. And of course, as always, thank you to the mods for ushering that wonderful conversation with everyone, where we allow for disagreement, we allow for different perspectives, and we do so with respect and good faith. So, anyhow, thank you again to everybody. This has been absolutely wonderful. I hope that you guys are able to join us tomorrow for our legal tea, where we will have some updates on the Weinstein and Masterson trials. We'll see what's going on with those. All righty. And with that, thank you to everyone. See you in the next video.